I'm Lynn Hsiao. I sat in class listening to everyone buzz about the new policy. If you choose to become a lord and enter the chaotic source C, the city government will give you a fine-grade item for free. Most people saw easy loot. I saw desperation. The frontline war must be going badly if they're handing out gear like candy. In our world, anyone over 18 can teleport into the chaotic source C and become a lord. Lords gain eternal life and incredible power. But the path is deadly. Millions never come back, and there's no quitting once you start. That's why barely 3 million people sign up each year. This new handout was clearly meant to boost those numbers. My seatmate, a chubby kid, asked if I was going. I said yes without hesitation. He envied that. He was torn, tempted by the free gear, but terrified of dying. I didn't try to talk him into it or out of it. Life and death choices aren't mine to make for someone else. On January 1st, Lord Calendar Year 5084, I arrived early at the Central Plaza of Chinching City. A massive teleportation array stood there, glowing and waiting. People of all ages streamed in, teenagers like me, adults, even elderly folks. I estimated tens of thousands just from our city alone, way more than usual. Across the 5 continents and 300 cities of the main world, maybe 10 million new lords this time. That free item really changed a lot of minds. Some classmates greeted me nervously. I nodded back. Then the array lit up. Water-like lights swallowed the entire plaza, and we were gone. The moment the teleport ended, system messages flooded my ears. I received a territory and lord status automatically. Then the identity check started and glitched. It called me a second-generation lord, then detected something wrong with my soul, reclassified me as a first-generation lord through an error. My vision turned blood red. I felt something catastrophic about to crash down on me. Then, just like that, the system corrected itself. It told me I had awakened a talent called Infinite and handed me a starter pack. That made no sense. Talents and starter packs are exclusive to first-generation lords. The billions of blue star humans who were dropped into the chaotic source C over 5,000 years ago. Those original lords built the main world afterward to raise their descendants. Everyone born in the main world, including me, should be a second-generation lord. But I have a secret I've never told anyone. In my previous life, I was one of those blue star humans. I was chosen alongside billions of others to descend into the chaotic source C. Except something went wrong during my teleportation, and I arrived more than 5,000 years late. Honestly, I count myself lucky. The death rate for today's lords is considered high, but it's nothing compared to what happened back then. Billions of clueless blue star people were thrown into the chaotic source C with zero knowledge or preparation. The slaughter was unimaginable. Most died within the first year. The survivors are so rare they can be counted on one hand. I was nobody special on Blue Star. I never would have made it. That 5,000-year delay saved my life. I calmed down and opened my status panel. Level 0. Constitution and Spirit both at 10. The absolute ceiling for an unascended person. Back on Blue Star, ordinary humans sat around 1 in those stats. Even the best barely hit 2. But people born in the main world start at 3 minimum. We grew up eating spirit-infused food, living in environments soaked with spiritual energy, and training with cultivation techniques passed down by the first generation. Our starting line is incomparably higher. Second-generation lords don't get system talents or starter packs, but we inherit everything our predecessors built. That's our edge. Then I looked at my newly awakened talent. Infinite, SSS rank. Your strength, and that of your troops and heroes, will never be capped by your territory's level. You will grow without limit. My eyes went wide when I read my talent description again. In the chaotic source C, everything is tied to your territory's level. If your territory is level 0, you're stuck at 0, your stats, your troops, your heroes, all capped. My constitution and spirit would stay locked no matter how hard I trained. But Infinite broke that rule completely. I could keep growing with no ceiling. In the first source C, where all new lords start, the highest anyone can reach is Tier 3 with a Level 3 territory. I had no such limit. The advantage was enormous. I didn't know much about talents in general, but I was certain mine ranked among the very best any first-generation lord ever received. My territory was nothing special. 1,000 square meters, 0 population, 1 lord's mansion, Room for 1 hero. Standard for a new lord. I checked the regional chat channel. Messages were flying past. I confirmed I'd been placed in the same area as the other new lords. Aside from the talent and the starter pack, everything else looked the same. But I needed to find out if I had access to other first-generation benefits too. First kill rewards, first upgrade rewards, ranking rewards, the 7-day trial rewards. All of those were created to help the original Blue Star lords survive. If the system truly counted me as first generation, those should all be available. The easiest one to test was the first kill reward. I opened my inventory on the way to the edge of my territory. 4 items sat inside. The starter pack, plus the 3 things I'd brought from the main world: a random hero token, rare, a random troop seal, rare, and a wind feather bow, rare. 3 rare grade items. The quality tiers go from common, fine, rare, perfect, epic, legendary, to mythic. The city government's offer of 1 fine grade item was enough to multiply the number of new lords several times over. I had 3 items a full tier above that. This wasn't luck, it was family. When I reincarnated into the main world, I was born to mid-level lords operating in the second source C. Not top tier, but far above ordinary people. They're the reason I maxed out my constitution and spirit before turning 18. They'd carefully prepared these 3 items for me long in advance, and since rare is the highest grade the first source C can hold, they gave me exactly that. For their only son, they spared nothing. I pulled out the wind feather bow, a beautiful green longbow wrapped in elegant feathers, wind swirling faintly around it. Holding it, I walked to the eastern edge of my territory. 1,000 square meters is tiny. I reached the border in seconds. Beyond it, endless gray mist stretched in every direction. That's the void, the space between territories in the chaotic source sea. It's filled with void monsters, and clearing them out is how lords expand their land. The mist stirred. A black creature shaped like a hound stepped out, big as a calf, with a single twisted horn on its head. It bared a mouth full of fangs and roared silently at me. A void hound. I recognized it immediately. It lunged at me but slammed into an invisible wall, the natural barrier between territory and void. Monsters can't cross it. But that barrier disappears on the 7th day after arrival, and again after 10 days. The 7th day disappearance is the famous 7-day trial. Countless first-generation lords died to it. For well-prepared second-generation lords, it's much less dangerous. I didn't wait. I stepped through the barrier myself. It only blocks monsters. Lords pass through freely. The void hound charged at me the moment I entered its space. I kicked it. The creature let out a sharp cry, flew back over 10 meters, twitched on the ground, and died. Early-stage void territory is weak, and this hound had a constitution of maybe 2. Against my maxed-out stats, it was like an infant facing a grown man. Then the system chimed. Congratulations. You are the first to kill a Tier 0 void monster. Reward: 10,000 source crystals and 1 common grade treasure chest. The first kill reward. So it was true. I had access to the other first-generation benefits too. Even better, the system clearly only counted first-generation lords for these rewards. I'd moved fast, but among tens of millions of new lords, plenty of strong ones must have started killing before me. They just didn't qualify because they weren't first-generation. No matter how quick they were, it didn't count. I opened the common treasure chest from the first kill reward. It gave me a common grade sword. Worthless to me, but that wasn't the point. What mattered was what it proved. If first kill rewards existed for me, then the other first-generation benefits had to be active too. And the biggest ones were the 7-day trial rewards, the first month ranking rewards, and the year-end final rewards. The prizes for those were beyond imagination: world wonders, mythic grade items, treasures that only exist in legends. And the better you perform, the better the reward. The best part? I had no competition. I was the only first-generation lord. I actually knew about these rewards thanks to a certain Blue Star lord. Among the handful of original lords still alive, most stay hidden, but one had been a massive celebrity back on Blue Star and stayed just as famous in the main world. I never had the status to meet someone like that, but I'd watched plenty of their movies and shows. Things like Reborn on Descent Day, I Awakened a God-tier talent, and Started with a Dog, I Slaughtered through the Chaotic Source Sea. Everyone treated those stories as entertainment. I treated them as information. And now that information was paying off. World wonders. Mythic items. Things I'd never have a shot at under normal circumstances, even with an SSS rank talent. But right now, during these early evaluations, was my best and maybe only chance. I made my decision. I would push myself to the absolute limit and build the most perfect start imaginable. The 7-day trial came first. I had to perform as well as possible. While I was thinking, a pack of void hounds came charging out of the gray mist toward me. I drew the wind feather bow. A cyan arrow formed instantly on the string. I released it, and the lead hound didn't even have time to dodge. The arrow punched through it and blew it apart from the inside. Rare-grade weapon against these weak creatures was complete overkill. I fired arrow after arrow, and every hound that rushed me exploded on impact. Years of training gave me solid combat skills and accurate aim. Once everything in sight was dead, I stopped to think. For the evaluations, what matters most is territory size, territory level, and overall strength. I couldn't do this alone. Lords aren't meant to fight solo. I opened the starter pack. It gave me 3,000 source crystals, 200 units of food, 150 wood, 150 stone, 1 common grade random hero token, and 1 common grade random troop seal. Pretty underwhelming, but it was just a starter kit. Now I had 2 hero tokens and 2 troop seals, 1 rare, 1 common of each. My level 0 territory only allowed 1 hero, so I had to use the best one. I activated the rare hero token. A phantom river appeared in the air, flickering with countless fragments of time. A figure took shape inside it and stepped out before me. A tall, striking woman in red light armor, holding a long spear. The killing intent rolling off her hit me like a wall and made me catch my breath. "Zhang Yao greets the Lord," she said, dropping to one knee. "Command me as you wish." I could already tell she was far beyond what a tier 0 being should feel like. I checked her stats and nearly choked. Constitution, 60. Spirit, 50. Her cultivation technique was B rank, and she had 3 B rank skills including mastery of both spear and bow. These were numbers that belonged to a tier 1 hero, not tier 0. Then I understood, it was my talent. Infinite. Remove the territory level cap on heroes too. Any other lord who summoned her at territory level 0 would see her stats crushed down to 10. But mine showed her true power. If I'd used a perfect grade hero token, the hero probably would have come out with tier 2 strength right away. Unfortunately, perfect grade tokens were beyond what my parents could provide. But some new lords from the great families and major factions of the main world definitely had them. I needed to find a way to get my hands on higher grade tokens and troop seals. Time was too precious to wait for my forces to grow slowly from scratch. I pushed those thoughts aside for now. "Zhang Yao, listen well," I said. "Clear the void territories to the west, south, and north." Immediately, understood, she didn't hesitate. With that monstrous constitution fueling her speed and power, she shot into the western void like a bolt of red lightning and started tearing through everything in her path. After Zhang Yao left to clear the other directions, I used the rare-grade troop seal. A portal of light appeared and soldiers marched out, black-armored warriors carrying heavy blades and shields. The number you get is random, anywhere from 5 to 10. I got lucky, 10 black-armored soldiers, the maximum. I checked one of their stat panels. Constitution 35, Spirit 20, with C and D rank skills in defense and swordsmanship. Like Zhang Yao, their stats broke past the tier 0 cap thanks to my talent, though they were well below her level. In a real fight, the gap between a hero and regular troops would be even wider than the number suggested. I ordered them under Zhang Yao's command and sent them all to attack the remaining void territories together. 1 hero and 10 rare-grade soldiers filled my entire population cap. Each rare soldier takes 10 population, so that was all 100 slots used up. I couldn't even summon a single civilian worker to gather resources. Normally that would be a problem, but I didn't care. Right now I was going all in on military strength. I'd buy whatever resources I needed from other lords through the trading market. I walked deeper into the eastern void. I'd already killed every void hound here, about 20 in total, so nothing stood in my way. Soon I found a golden glowing chest sitting on the ground. An area chest. These appear after you wipe out all the monsters in a void zone or destroy their nest. You can technically get almost anything from them, even mythic grade items, but the weaker the zone, the worse the odds. I wasn't expecting much from this first one. I opened it. 5,000 source crystals, 400 food, 400 wood, 350 stone, and a common crossbow. Basic stuff, as expected. The moment the chest was opened, the gray mist around me vanished. The ground turned to solid earth and merged with my territory. I checked my territory panel, 2,500 square meters now, up from 1,000. Zhang Yao came back shortly after. Lord, the west, south, and north void zones are all cleared. Those weak Tier 0 monsters were nothing to her and the black armored soldiers. They spent more time walking around looking for enemies than actually fighting. Good work, I told her, pointing toward the new edges of my expanded territory. When the next layer of void zones connects, keep killing. The void outside the territory is endless. Each layer needs a little time to link up to the border before you can enter it. Stronger zones take longer, but these early ones connected fast. I went to the other 3 directions and opened the remaining area chests. For chests total from the first layer, each one independent. More crystals, more resources, nothing exciting. My territory grew to 7,000 square meters. To upgrade from level 0 to level 1, I needed 100,000 source crystals, 10,000 each of food, wood, and stone, 100,000 square meters of territory, 100 population, 1 hero, and 3 buildings. I had the population and hero covered, but everything else was far short. Upgrading a territory isn't easy. Among the original first-generation lords, very few managed to hit level 1 within 7 days. For second-generation lords with proper preparation, though, the difficulty dropped a lot. Back at the center of my territory, I opened the building menu. I had enough basic resources to put down a dwelling and a tavern. They were simple structures that went up fast. Together with the Lord's mansion, that satisfied the 3-building requirement. Territory size would come naturally from clearing more void zones. The real bottleneck was basic resources. I had resource nodes appearing in my territory as the void converted to land, but I had 0 workers to harvest them and no intention of wasting time on that. I needed a faster way. I opened the regional chat channel. A notification popped up asking if I wanted to join the Qinxing First High School group. That was my old school, so I joined immediately. Welcome messages flooded in. Being the only child of 2 mid-level lords gave me some reputation at school, so people recognized my name right away. I sent a quick greeting, then backed out and opened my friend list. Since I hadn't made any noise in the public channels yet, I barely had any friend requests, mostly just classmates from school. I accepted them all. Almost immediately, one friend's icon started flashing. The first message came from a guy a few years older than me, not a schoolmate, but someone I recognized. He sent a trade request with a rare-grade hero token. I accepted, gave him 1 source crystal as a token payment, and thanked him. Then I contacted 2 more people. Soon I had a rare troop seal and a rare source crystal card added to my inventory. These 3 people were what you'd call blood bags. Each one had used one of their 3 item slots to carry something in for me. This is common practice in the main world. Wealthy families arrange for extra people to bring in resources for their favored children. Finding qualified blood bags isn't easy, though. They need to be strong enough that losing 1 item slot won't get them killed during the 7-day trial. My parents are only mid-level lords, so they could only arrange 3. After the trial, my parents would compensate them, so nobody lost out. I used the source crystal card. 1 million source crystals hit my account instantly. I was rich. I opened the trading market and started buying everything I needed: food, wood, stone. The resource requirements for upgrading to a level 1 territory were filled almost immediately. The only thing left was territory size, and Zhang Yao's team would handle that soon enough. I checked my school's chat group. Someone named Gao Yu was tagging me, inviting me to join his guild and offering me a management position. Gao Yu was the big name at Qinxing First High. His family reportedly had a high-ranking lord backing them. I looked at his profile. He already had a level 1 territory. His family had clearly prepared way more blood bags than mine, plus expensive territory expansion cards to skip the size requirement. And he was just 1 person in 1 city. Across the entire main world, plenty of others were probably at level 1 already. Good thing none of them counted for first-generation rewards. I thought about the guild offer. Guilds are how lords band together for protection, especially after the 7-day trial ends and your territory becomes visible to other lords in the first source sea. Invasions from other races are a real threat, and weak lords need shelter. But joining Gao Yu's guild wouldn't benefit me much. The guild leader always takes the biggest share, and the scraps left for managers weren't worth my time. Starting my own guild wasn't practical either. Only about 100 lords came from our school, and I couldn't compete with Gao Yu's reputation. Recruiting strangers from the regional channel was hopeless with my low profile, so I took a different approach. I posted in the school group, "Thanks for the offer, but I'm not joining a guild right now. However, if anyone's interested, I'm offering vassal-level protection contracts in exchange for a set amount of resources." The chat went quiet for a moment. What I was offering was basically selling protection, and serious protection at that. Vassal level means you're obligated to send troops to defend someone no matter how strong the attacker is. That's far better than what any guild provides. Guild leaders routinely ignore members who get attacked by someone too powerful. Gao Yu was shocked. Even he wouldn't dare make that kind of promise. He figured I must have pulled something amazing from an area chest. But he shrugged it off. He knew most people wouldn't actually sign up, since a contract that strong meant they'd need to trust my strength completely. He was right. Only 3 people came to me in the end. I didn't mind. I signed system-enforced contracts with all 3. They each had to deliver resources worth 100,000 source crystals during the 7-day period. That was honestly cheap for vassal-level protection, but if I priced it higher, nobody could afford it while still keeping themselves alive through the trial. 3 protection contracts weren't nearly enough. My real goal was to reach a level 2 territory within 7 days. Among first-generation lords, almost nobody pulled that off, so doing it would massively boost my evaluation score. But I needed far more resources and stronger forces. First things first, upgrade to level 1. To get more followers and collect more protection fees, I couldn't just talk big. I had to prove my strength. I wasn't some elite heir from a major faction. If I tried recruiting strangers with nothing to show, I'd only get laughed at. I joined Zhang Yao and the black armored soldiers in clearing the second layer of void zones. The monsters here were still tier 0, but noticeably stronger than the void hounds. Constitution and spirit around 4 or 5. It didn't matter. My arrows still blew them apart easily, and Zhang Yao's squad crushed everything in their path. We opened 4 more area chests. The rewards were better than the first layer. More crystals, more resources. Any useful gear went straight to Zhang Yao and the soldiers. Everything else I sold on the trading market. My territory had grown to 37,000 square meters. I checked my territory map. A small grove had appeared. Good for some extra wood, but nothing exciting. No hidden mines, no rare deposits. My luck with loot was thoroughly average. When the 3rd layer of void zones finally connected to my border, I sent everyone in immediately. This layer was different. Hundreds of black 2-tailed horses came stampeding out of the mist, and behind them lumbered massive creatures, frenzied bull beasts, over 3 meters tall with crazed red eyes. The horses were tier 0 but among the strongest of that tier, with stats around 7 or higher. The bulls were tier 1 monsters, with attributes that could reach 30. Tier 1 monsters on only the 3rd layer. For a level 0 territory, that's a serious threat. Zhang Yao charged straight into the horse herd with her new spear, a fine-grade weapon called Thousand Snow that I'd pulled from a 2nd-layer chest. Every swing either impaled a horse completely or smashed it to pieces. The black armored soldiers formed a wall of shields, letting the horses crash uselessly against them before cutting them down like wheat. I drew my wind feather bow and aimed at the bulls in the back. At my current strength, I couldn't one-shot tier 1 monsters, but the first arrow punched a hole clean through one bull's body and dropped it. A second arrow finished it off. The system chimed. First kill of a tier 1 void monster. Reward, 100,000 source crystals and a fine-grade treasure chest. I opened it and got a fine-grade saber called Red Plume. I gave it to Wang Wu, the strongest of my black armored soldiers. I kept shooting. There were only about a dozen bulls, and I dropped them all before they could enter their frenzied state. After that, it was just cleanup. The zones were bigger now, so the monsters were spread out and took more time to hunt down. The area chests from the 3rd layer gave even better rewards. More crystals, more food, wood, stone, and a new basic resource appeared too. I thought about how impossible this would be for actual first-generation lords. Without a powerful combat talent or incredible luck with loot, clearing the 3rd layer during the 7-day trial was out of the question. And they had no intelligence, no idea how strong each new layer would be. They'd be gambling with their lives every time they pushed deeper. After converting all 4 third-layer zones, my territory hit 160,000 square meters. Every upgrade requirement was now met. I ran back to the Lord's mansion and opened the territory panel. An upgrade button had appeared next to the territory level. Upgrade territory. The moment I hit upgrade, golden light fell from the sky and wrapped around the Lord's mansion. It transformed from a tiny wooden shack into a 2-story brick building right before my eyes. The light spread across my entire territory, and I could feel the space becoming more stable, more real. The spiritual energy density jumped up to match an ordinary region in the main world. Level 0 territories have terrible energy concentration. This was a huge improvement. The system rewarded me for being the first Lord to upgrade a territory, 100,000 source crystals, and a fine-grade chest. Then came the territory adjustment. Every time you upgrade, you get 1 chance to reorganize your land. The void zones convert into random terrain, a patch of plains here, a lake there, so the territory ends up looking like a messy patchwork. If you don't fix it, the space stays unstable and spiritual energy leaks out constantly. A level 1 territory with bad layout might only have level 0 energy density. We learned about territory adjustment in school, and my parents taught me plenty of tricks too. While checking the map, I noticed a small stone quarry had appeared. It wasn't from any converted void zone. It spawned during the upgrade itself. There's always a chance of new resources generating when a territory levels up. My luck wasn't so bad after all. The adjustment was quick since my territory was still small and the terrain wasn't complicated. My updated territory panel showed level 1, 160,000 square meters, population cap of 1,000 with 100 used, and room for 2 heroes now. I still had a rare hero token and troop seal, but I held off. At level 1, rare grade summons wouldn't be suppressed anymore, which meant my talent's advantage wouldn't show. I needed perfect grade or higher tokens to really benefit. Unless I had no other choice, I'd wait. Jiang Yao and the soldiers returned. I told them to rest and cultivate while we waited for the 4th layer of void zones to connect. I checked Jiang Yao's stats. Her tier had automatically advanced to 1 since she already had tier 1 strength. Same for the black armored soldiers. Meanwhile, I was still tier 0. The 4th layer would take a while to appear, so I started cultivating too. My technique, the evergreen method, is nothing special. Easy to learn, balanced, no harsh requirements. Before, I'd been stuck at the tier 0 ceiling with nowhere to go. But now that the territory was level 1, everything changed. My body became like a whirlpool, pulling in the ambient spiritual energy, converting it into warm currents that flowed through me along the cultivation paths. After some time, I felt a tremor run through my entire body, a wonderful sensation of transformation at the deepest level. I'd broken through to tier 1. Constitution and spirit both rose to 11. The raw power increase wasn't dramatic, but this was a fundamental evolution. My ceiling was higher, my cultivation talent was sharper, and my lifespan had doubled, from 100 years to 200. The system gave me another first-place reward for being the first Lord to advance to tier 1, another 100,000 crystals, and a fine-grade chest. I checked the time. 6 hours had passed. Jiang Yao had gained 3 points in both Constitution and Spirit. The soldiers gained about 2 each. Too slow. Killing monsters gives no experience in this world. The only ways to grow stronger are cultivation, consuming rare treasures and pills, or special methods. Cultivation alone requires resources, techniques, companions, and a good environment. Even with Jiang Yao's strong talent, reaching the tier 1 cap would take 3 full days. The soldiers would need even longer. Tier 2 was out of the question at this pace. Time was what I lacked most. I pulled up the level 2 upgrade requirements. 1 million source crystals, 100,000 each of food, wood, and stone, 10,000 iron ore, 1 square kilometer of territory, 1,000 population, 2 heroes, 3 level 1 buildings, and 5 buildings total. I didn't meet a single condition. After clearing the 4th void layer, I need to stop expanding and focus on strengthening what I had. That was the plan, and I was confident I could handle the 4th layer. I opened the 2 fine-grade chests from my upgrade and tier advancement rewards. I got a set of armor and a shield. The armor went to Jiang Yao, the shield to Wang Wu. When the fourth void layer finally connected, I led everyone to the eastern zone. Before we entered, I handed the wind feather bow to Jiang Yao. It was my only rare-grade weapon, but I was now the weakest person in the group. Keeping it made no sense. The fourth layer's monsters were strong enough that one mistake could get someone killed. I needed every advantage in the right hands. My life is in your hands too, I told her seriously. She dropped to one knee, eyes burning. As long as I breathe, nothing will touch you. She took the bow like it was sacred. After that, she glared at everything that so much as looked at me. The fourth layer zone was massive. We moved in without attracting much attention at first, which was good. It let us advance carefully. Then the mist churned, and everything came at once. Over 1,000 monsters charged us from every direction. The black armored soldiers stepped forward and formed a wall. The creatures smashed into their shields and went nowhere. Wang Wu and his men swung their blades in silence, methodically cutting down everything in front of them. 10 soldiers holding back 1,000 monsters, cold, efficient killing machines. Jiang Yao watched the horde carefully. Most were Tier 0, but about 100 Tier 1 monsters were mixed in. She picked them out one by one. When she fired the wind feather bow, the difference from when I used it was staggering. A thick beam of cyan light exploded from the string and hit a Tier 1 monster dead center. The creature's body detonated, and the shrapnel shredded every Tier 0 monster nearby. It wasn't just her stats being several times higher than mine. Her cultivation technique and skills multiplied the weapon's power enormously. She was like a god of death. Point, fire, explosion. Even Tier 1 monsters with attributes in the 60s and 70s couldn't survive a single shot. After she wiped out all 100+ Tier 1 monsters, the battle was basically over. I split the soldiers into pairs and sent them into the mist to clean up stragglers. With the main force destroyed, whatever was left couldn't threaten them. Jiang Yao stayed at my side as we pushed deeper. The soldiers worked fast. Soon the golden area chest appeared, meaning everything was dead. I opened it. 60,000 crystals, thousands of food, wood, stone, 700 iron ore, a common staff, and a blood-red fruit. My heart jumped when I read the description. A Tier 1 consumable that permanently adds 10 points of constitution, up to 3 per person, ineffective above 100. Items that directly boost stats are extremely rare. I gave it to Jiang Yao without hesitation. She was my main damage dealer. She got priority on anything like this. Her constitution jumped to 75, making the bow even deadlier in her hands. We cleared the south and west zones without trouble. Then we moved to the north. The northern zone had been connected to my territory for a while already, so the monsters inside had noticed us. A crowd of them was gathered at the border, waiting for the barrier to drop so they could invade. They were green-skinned creatures with gaping mouths. I recognized them immediately, half-orcs. Every monster we'd fought until now had been random wildlife, different types mixed together. But half-orcs are a proper species, and they travel in large organized groups around monster nests. If this wasn't a coincidence, then layers 5, 6, and beyond in the northern direction could be full of stronger half-orcs and their breeding nests. That changed things considerably. I didn't overthink the half-orc situation. Kill first, worry later. The black armored soldiers went in first. The outermost enemies were Tier 0 half-orc slaves, ragged creatures armed with nothing but wooden sticks. They swarmed Wang Wu's squad, but the soldiers blocked everything with their shields and cut them down without giving an inch. Their original weapons had broken in earlier fights, so they were using a mix of gear from area chests and stuff I'd bought on the trading market. After 5,000 years of Lord civilization, the supply chain was well developed. Blacksmith lords were mass-producing common-grade equipment at cheap prices. Quality gear was harder to get, but basic weapons and armor were plentiful. Once the soldiers established a foothold, Jiang Yao escorted me in and started her massacre. Cyan blasts tore through clusters of enemies. She focused on the Tier 1 half-orc warriors in the back, dropping at least one with every shot. But the rest kept coming, fearless and endless. This was the toughest fight yet. Over 2,000 slaves and nearly 200 warriors. I watched the battle closely, ready to use my spare rare hero token or troop seal the instant things got dangerous. It never came to that. Jiang Yao and the soldiers were strong enough, and I kept them supplied, swapping out broken gear on the spot, feeding them recovery items nonstop. They pushed through the entire horde and killed every last half-orc. When I reached the area chest deep in the mist, I hesitated for a moment. If I didn't open it, this void zone wouldn't convert, which would delay the 5th layer from connecting. The 5th layer's monsters were far beyond what I could handle right now. Leaving the chest sealed would buy me time. But I shook my head. I was chasing the best possible rewards. No room for playing it safe. I opened the chest. 65,000 crystals, plenty of resources, iron ore, and 10 frost clarity pills, cultivation boosters that speed up training. Not as dramatic as the blood-red fruit, but perfect for everyone to use right now. Back at my territory, rows of dwellings now stood inside the borders. I'd built them during downtime because heroes and soldiers are living beings. They need places to sleep. I rewarded the troops and dismissed them to rest or cultivate. The 5th layer wouldn't connect until tomorrow at the earliest. My territory had reached 570,000 square meters. One more layer, and I'd have the space needed for level 2. But the 5th layer would be brutally difficult. I needed to strengthen my forces first. I opened the regional channel and made part of my territory information public. Then I posted another advertisement in the school group, offering more protection contracts. People checked my profile and lost their minds. Level 1 territory, 570,000 square meters. Nearly as large as Gao Yu's, and he was supposed to be the top lord from our school. 5 more classmates signed contracts with me on the spot. Gao Yu saw the commotion too. He was shocked. He knew my family background wasn't wealthy enough for territory expansion cards, which meant I'd earned all that space by actually clearing 4 layers of void zones. He quickly decided to stay on good terms with me. After the 7-day trial, we'd both face alien lords, and having a strong ally nearby would benefit him. With 8 total contracts secured, I stopped recruiting from the school group. Everyone there knew my background well enough to doubt I could protect more than that. The remaining students had either joined Gao Yu's guild, formed their own small groups, or planned to join established guilds after the trial. No point pushing further. Instead, I messaged Gao Yu directly. No beating around the bush. Do you have any spare perfect grade hero tokens or troop seals? Gao Yu's reply was basically a question mark. Perfect grade hero tokens aren't exactly lying around. Even his family would struggle to produce one. He told me to forget about epic grade. Those basically don't exist on the market. But he offered to ask around using his connections. I was a bit disappointed. An epic grade token under my talent's effect would summon a hero with tier 3 strength, enough to steamroll several void layers. But realistically, even if someone pulled one from a chest, they'd never sell it. Gao Yu came through fast. His family's network across Dongzhou was impressive. He found someone with a perfect grade hero token for sale, and also heard about someone who had a perfect grade barracks blueprint. He gave me both contacts. I promised him 1 free rescue if his territory ever came under attack. That was exactly what he wanted, more allies in a dangerous world. He also reminded me that perfect grade heroes and troops are best summoned at territory level 2, when they can fully display their power. I told him I already knew. He assumed I was just planning ahead, and dismissed the thought that I might actually be trying to reach level 2 during the 7-day trial. He had good reason to think that way. In the chaotic source C, there's a matching system. Your biggest threats come from lords at your same level. If you're 1 tier below an enemy, you're much harder to find, and there are penalties for attacking you. 2 tiers apart, they basically can't find you at all and can't invade directly. 3 tiers means 0 interaction. The strongest lords in the first source C are tier 3. So staying at level 1 keeps you almost invisible to them. Gao Yu's family could probably push him to level 2 during the trial, but he didn't dare. He couldn't guarantee he'd survive invasions from tier 2 alien lords, let alone tier 3 ones. He'd stay at level 1 until he was strong enough. He figured I had even less reason to rush. My family's resources were thinner than his. Only the true elites from the biggest factions would dare upgrade during the trial period. He didn't know about my situation. I tracked down the guy with the perfect grade hero token, someone named Sun Yu. His public profile showed a level 1 territory at 150,000 square meters, meaning he'd only cleared 3 void layers. He'd probably gotten incredibly lucky with an area chest. Smart enough not to list it on the open market, though. He was waiting for private offers from buyers who could afford it. I added him and got straight to the point. I want your perfect grade hero token. His price: 1 rare grade hero token plus 3 vassal level protections. I immediately understood why nobody had bought it yet. The token trade was fair enough, but 3 rounds of vassal-level protection was extreme. Even Gao Yu wouldn't promise that once. The big-shot heirs from major factions could probably handle 1 or 2, but 3 was pushing it, and they weren't desperate for a perfect-grade token anyway. If the price was right, they'd buy 1 for the investment. Too high, and they'd walk. They had other options. Your price is too high, I told him. Sun Yu must have smirked on the other end. He'd heard that line 100 times. His bottom line was firm. The rare token and 3 protections. Take it or leave it. Before he could close the chat, my next message appeared. So, I'll need to pay more. Sun Yu almost closed the chat on me, then did a double take when he realized what I'd said. He got excited fast. I was the first person to actually agree to his terms. He confirmed, 1 rare hero token and 3 vassal-level protections, no negotiation. I said fine, but he'd need to add some resources or crystals to cover the difference. He checked my profile, saw my territory size, and relaxed. We hammered out the details and signed the contract. Perfect-grade hero token, secured. Next was the true problem. I looked up Gao Yu's second contact, someone named Jean Ruchuan. The surname Jean made me pause. Stone Commerce Alliance was one of the biggest trade organizations in all of Dongzhou. If this was one of their elite lords, having a perfect-grade barracks blueprint made sense. Jean Ruchuan was clearly a busy person. He took a while to accept my friend request, then got straight to the point with zero small talk. He could provide a perfect-grade troop seal after the 7-day trial, but right now all he had was a perfect-grade barracks blueprint. He sent me the details. Frost Fortress, a perfect-grade barracks that could recruit frost giants, a perfect-grade troop type from the giant race. I frowned. Frost giants were an alien species. Normally when you use tokens or seals, you get soldiers of your own race. Alien troops have 2 major problems. They don't coordinate well with your existing forces, and their power systems are often completely different. Human territories run on spiritual energy. Frost giants were clearly magic-based creatures. They couldn't absorb spiritual energy to grow stronger. Whatever stats they had when summoned was what you'd be stuck with, unless you fed them rare stat-boosting items or poured massive resources into them. That's why nobody had bought this blueprint. People who could afford it didn't want the hassle. People who wanted it couldn't afford it. I told Jean Ruchuan the limitations made it overpriced. He sweetened the deal immediately. He'd throw in all the construction materials for free and cut the recruitment cost of the first 10 frost giants in half. I thought it over. It was actually a generous offer. The building materials for a perfect-grade structure alone were expensive. And yes, frost giants had serious long-term limitations, but they were still perfect-grade troops. Their starting strength would be formidable. Other lords could afford to wait for better options after the trial. I couldn't. I needed combat power right now. I agreed, then asked if I could pay in installments. My funds were stretched thin. I was keeping my rare troop seal for personal use, so I couldn't trade it away. Jean Ruchuan sent back a row of dots. But he agreed. I was a strong lord, a quality customer, and the blueprint would only lose value the longer he held it. Selling during the trial period was the best price he'd get. I laughed out loud in my territory. 1 rare hero token spent, and I'd gotten a perfect-grade hero token and a perfect-grade barracks blueprint. My forces were about to get incomparably stronger. I went to the northern edge of my territory and started building the Frost Fortress. As a perfect-grade structure, it would take 6 hours to complete. Then I went back to the Lord's Mansion and used the perfect-grade hero token and the rare troop seal at the same time. The Phantom River appeared again, fragments of time swirling inside. A massive figure stepped out, a man built like an iron tower, over 2 meters tall, carrying a giant battle axe and riding a jet-black warhorse. The pressure radiating from him was terrifying, like standing before an entire army. His presence dwarfed Jiang Yao's by far. At the same time, a light portal opened and soldiers marched through. Maybe because I'd used the hero token and troop seal simultaneously, every single soldier was a cavalryman. Heavy riders in crimson armor, both horse and rider fully plated. The giant of a man leaped off his horse and the ground shook when he landed. He dropped to his knees before me, voice booming like a bell. Tu Lai greets the Lord. Behind him, the crimson-armored heavy cavalry knelt in unison. The Dragon-Lance Iron Cavalry greets the Lord, I said. Good. 3 times and told them to rise. Then I checked Tu Lai's stats. Constitution, 850. Spirit, 680. A-rank cultivation technique. 4 A-rank skills including mounted combat mastery and a devastating axe technique. He was a perfect grade hero with Tier 2 true strength, though his displayed tier was locked at 1 by the territory level. Thanks to my talent, his actual power wasn't suppressed at all. He instantly became the strongest fighter in my territory, far beyond Jiang Yao. I had zero doubt he could charge into a horde of monsters and come out without a scratch. The Dragon Lance Iron Cavalry were rare grade, same tier as the Black Armored Soldiers, but with slightly higher stats. Constitution around 50, Spirit around 35. They were built for charging rather than holding lines. Different roles, roughly equal overall. I got 10 of them, maximum again. I introduced Tu Lai and the cavalry to Jiang Yao's group. Everyone was human and had full loyalty, so they got along fine. 6 hours later, the Frost Fortress finished building. I hurried to the northern edge of my territory. A small ice blue structure stood there, only about 100 square meters, barely worthy of the name, fortress, but it was level 0. It would grow with upgrades. The ground around it had turned to frozen tundra and bitter wind howled from inside. High-grade buildings really do change the environment. The fortress was listed as sealed. A perfect grade building can't function fully in the first Source C. But troop recruitment still worked. I opened the recruitment panel and started summoning. The materials weren't cheap, but Jean Rouchuan's half-price deal on the first 10 made it manageable, and he had everything I needed in stock. The fortress doors opened and a 3-meter-tall frost giant stepped out, knelt, and swore loyalty. Honestly, I'd expected taller. But giants grow bigger as they advance in tier. I checked his stats and nearly choked. Constitution, 710. Spirit, 800. B-rank giant bloodline, plus 4 skills including ice magic and an ice armor ability. His raw numbers rivaled Tu Lai's. Of course, a hero's true power goes far beyond raw stats. In real combat and long-term growth, a hero outclasses any soldier. But for immediate fighting strength, this was incredible. The deal was worth every crystal. I recruited 2 more frost giants before my money ran out completely. 3 was all I could afford. I was desperate to clear more void zones for resources and sign more protection contracts. Getting different species to cooperate wasn't seamless. The frost giants and human troops didn't mesh as naturally as my human forces did with each other. But it wasn't terrible either. Frost giants weren't fundamentally hostile to humans. I decided to command the 3 giants personally rather than put them under a human hero. My territory's fighting power had multiplied beyond recognition. By the second day, the 5th void layer had connected. I ordered everyone to assemble. Jiang Yao's group was fully rested, boosted by the frost clarity pills I'd distributed. Tu Lai and his cavalry were eager to fight. I chose to hit the northern zone first. That's where we'd found half-orcs in the 4th layer, and I suspected the 5th layer would have even more of them, possibly with nests. If so, the north was the most dangerous direction. Better to eliminate it first. I was right. Green-skinned half-orcs were pressed against the invisible barrier, snarling, waiting. Attack! The black armored soldiers went in first as always. Wang Wu's squad cut through the outer ring of Tier 0 half-orc slaves like they were nothing. But the 5th layer was on another level. The number of Tier 1 half-orc warriors had exploded, and they surged forward in waves that threatened to swallow the soldiers entirely. Jiang Yao rushed in and started firing. Massive cyan explosions tore through the horde, ripping apart clusters of enemies and pulling the black armored soldiers back from the edge. Jiang Yao fired relentlessly and pushed our line forward about 20 meters by herself. The black armored soldiers reformed their wall behind her. But this was only the beginning. The 5th layer was enormous, and the enemies we'd drawn out so far were just a fraction. More half-orcs poured from the mist, thousands of them, including waves of Tier 1 warriors. Then I spotted something worse. Mixed in with the regular warriors were bigger, bulkier figures wearing better equipment. Elite monsters. Their constitution and spirit were maxed at 100 for their tier, and their actual toughness was roughly 3 times that of a normal monster with the same stats. Jiang Yao targeted one with a full power shot. The cyan beam punched clean through it, nearly ripping it in half. It died, but it didn't explode like the regular warriors did. And that single shot had cost Jiang Yao serious effort. There were plenty more elites out there. With just her old squad, Clearing this layer would have been nearly impossible. Good thing my forces had grown. I waved the frost giants forward. All three raised their palms. Intense magical energy gathered into massive blue-white orbs of light. Frost star explosion. 3 orbs streaked into different sections of the horde and detonated. The cold was beyond anything I'd imagined. Every monster caught in the blast, slaves, warriors, elites, shattered into ice crystals instantly. Beyond the kill zone, a tide of freezing air rolled outward and turned hundreds more into frozen statues. Even monsters farther away were slowed to a crawl, their movements stiff and sluggish. Each explosion covered an area about half the size of a football field, and the 3 blasts carved the entire battlefield into isolated sections. Perfect-grade troops were worth every crystal. Long-range bombardment, massive burst damage, and crowd control all in one ability. The strategic impact was incredible. "Tu Lai," I called. He'd been waiting at the territory's edge. When he heard the order, he split into a savage grin. "Brothers, charge with me." He kicked his black warhorse forward and blasted through the barrier like a dark wind. The 10 Dragon Lance cavalrymen thundered after him. 11 fully armored heavy riders hit the battlefield at full speed. The ground shook under them. Every half-orc in their path was crushed into pulp. No resistance, no chance. Tu Lai swung his giant axe in whirlwinds, turning everything within 10 meters into a death zone. Even elites couldn't survive passing through it. Only 11 riders, but they cut through that horde like an army of thousands, carving a road of blood and flesh across the field. Then they wheeled around and charged into the next divided section. Tu Lai's strength was unreal. He was so far above everything else on this battlefield that I honestly believed he could have soloed the entire horde. Under his command, even the rare-grade cavalry hit far above their weight. The black-armored soldiers swept in behind to clean up survivors. Zhang Yao stayed at my side, picking off stragglers and tough targets with precise shots. The frost giants held back and conserved their magic. The remaining enemies weren't worth the expenditure, and if anything tried to rush them up close, well, they were still giants. Their clubs would handle it. The half-orc numbers dropped fast. The initial battle alone had drawn close to 10,000 of them, and there were more scattered throughout the zone. Without Tu Lai's overwhelming power, just killing them all would have taken ages. I followed the army as we pushed deeper into the mist. Somewhere in the heart of this zone, there had to be a half-orc nest. We'd need to destroy it to fully convert this void territory into my land. The remaining half-orcs in the northern zone were no threat at all. Tu Lai and the cavalry charged into the deep mist and quickly found what I'd expected, a monster nest. It was a crude, ancient-looking structure the size of several hundred square meters, constantly oozing black fog. Every so often, a new half-orc would walk out of it. This was the nature of void monsters. The half-orcs had once been a real lord race that descended into the chaotic source sea, just like humans. They'd been wiped out by other races, and what remained became void creatures. They weren't truly alive anymore. The nest spawned them endlessly. Leave it standing too long, and the entire zone would fill with half-orcs. Tu Lai was already attacking without waiting for my order. An energy shield of white light protected the nest, and even his devastating strikes only made it flicker slightly. But once the frost giants, black-armored soldiers, and Zhang Yao all piled on, the shield crumbled in about a minute. Without protection, the nest was leveled in seconds. The moment it fell, every surviving half-orc in the zone dissolved into black mist and vanished. A golden area chest appeared on the ruins. I opened it. 90,000 crystals, mountains of basic resources, 1,000 iron ore, and a low-grade spirit gathering formation. That was a lucky pull. This formation draws an ambient spiritual energy from the surrounding area and concentrates it, multiplying cultivation speed several times over. It could hold 10 people at once. Exactly what I needed. After converting the northern zone, I pointed the army at the other 3 directions. Tu Lai and the frost giants barely broke a sweat. The east, south, and west zones had no nests, just wild monsters, tens of thousands of them. But without reinforcements, they fell steadily. My forces swept through everything. Back at my territory afterward, I checked the panel. Territory size, 1.9 square kilometers. Population, 550 out of 1,000. 2 heroes, Both slots filled. The population was high because quality costs more. Each rare soldier at Tier 1 took 20 slots, and each perfect-grade frost giant took 50. Only 23 soldiers total, but they ate up 550 population. For the Level 2 upgrade, I had enough territory space and heroes, but I was still short on resources, buildings, and population. I needed more frost giants. I collected resources from my 8 protection contract holders, then messaged Lynn Hsiao to buy more recruitment materials. I also offered to sell him mining rights to my resource nodes. Extracting or takes time and population I couldn't spare. For a war-focused lord like me, converting raw resources into immediate military power was the smarter play. Lynn Hsiao checked my profile before replying. When he saw 1.9 square kilometers, he was shocked. His top clients, the elite heirs from massive factions who entered with endless blood bags, perfect-grade heroes, and mountains of supplies, had cleared the 5th layer too. Some had already reached Level 2 territories, but they'd had every advantage from the start. I had none of that background, hadn't even bought perfect-grade troops until today, and my territory was still only Level 1. Yet I was right on the heels of those top-tier lords, while someone like Gao Yu had already fallen behind. Lynn Hsiao didn't pry into my secrets, but I could tell from his tone that I'd just been upgraded from regular customer to someone worth investing in seriously. In his eyes, I was already more important than Gao Yu. My 1.9 square kilometer territory had spawned a couple of new resource nodes, a small iron mine, a small stone quarry, and a large forest. I sold them all to Lynn Hsiao and poured everything I got back into resources and supplies. First, I upgraded the Frost Fortress to Level 1. It grew much larger and could now hold 10 frost giants. I recruited all 10, filling 500 population slots. That brought my total to 900 out of 1,000. For the last 100, I didn't bother with civilian workers. I needed soldiers. But I couldn't build a second barracks. Level 1 territories only allow 1, and the Frost Fortress already held that slot. Using a random troop seal was too risky with only 100 population left. If it gave me 10 rare soldiers needing 200 slots, I'd lose half of them. Instead, I used a different tool, directed troop recruitment tokens. These let you pick an existing troop type in your territory and recruit one more of that exact kind. More expensive per unit than normal recruitment, but cheaper than building a whole new barracks for just a few soldiers. I chose black armored soldiers. They were my front line, shields and blades holding the line against everything. 10 wasn't enough. I used 5 tokens and got 5 new soldiers, all arriving at Tier 1 since my territory was already Level 1. That filled my last 100 population slots. With resources bought from Lynn Hsiao and crystals on hand, every upgrade requirement was now met except buildings. I needed 3 Level 1 buildings and 5 total. I already had the Lord's Mansion and Frost Fortress at Level 1. For the 5th building type, I built watchtowers on all 4 borders, essential for detecting invasions early. Then I upgraded the tavern to Level 1. Taverns can recruit random heroes over time, though at Level 1 it only produces common grade ones. Not useful now, but it would improve with upgrades. All conditions satisfied. I opened the territory panel and hit upgrade. Golden light poured from the sky, far more magnificent than the first time. The Lord's Mansion transformed from a brick house into a 3-story building with full furnishings. Then the light spread across the entire 1.9 square kilometers, stabilizing the space and flooding it with spiritual energy drawn from the void. The energy density of a Level 2 territory surpassed most regions in the main world. The system rewarded me for being the first lord to reach Level 2, 1 million source crystals, and a rare-grade treasure chest. Then came the territory adjustment. With a much bigger territory, there was more to fix. Fortunately, land converted from the same void zone at least followed basic logic. No deserts glued to lakes, so the work wasn't too painful. I finished the reorganization quickly. The territory settled into a stable, coherent shape, and the spiritual energy held steady throughout. While adjusting the territory, I checked what new resources had appeared. Level 2 upgrades guarantee basic resource nodes, and I got lucky. 2 small stone quarries, a small iron mine, a large forest, and even a small silver mine. Silver was far more valuable than anything else I'd found so far. I opened the rare grade chest from the first to upgrade reward. It gave me a rare hero token, which I no longer needed. I'd sell it to Lynn Hsiao along with my resource nodes. My territory panel now showed level 2, population cap of 10,000 with 1,500 used, room for 3 heroes and 5 building types. Plenty of room to grow. Then I looked at what level 3 required. 10 million crystals, massive amounts of every basic resource plus silver ore, 10 square kilometers of land, 10,000 population, 3 heroes, 5 level 2 buildings, 10 total buildings, and 1 Lord's Heart. That last item made me pause. A Lord's Heart can only be obtained one way: killing another Lord and destroying their territory. It can't be traded, and the target's territory level must be at least equal to yours. This is how the chaotic Source C works. It forces lords to kill each other. Even peaceful lords who focus on logistics must eventually take a life to advance. Coexistence isn't an option. But during the 7-day trial, we're all isolated. No invading other lords is possible. So level 2 was the absolute ceiling for any new lord, no matter how rich or powerful. I was already there. To maximize my 7-day evaluation, I needed to push territory size and overall strength as far as possible. That meant more void zones cleared, stronger heroes and troops, better buildings, and money to pay for all of it. My fastest income sources were area chests, selling resource nodes, and collecting more protection fees. Meanwhile, back in the school chat, people noticed my profile update. The reaction was explosive. Most of them were still at level 0. Gaoyu was at level 1 and considered the strongest. Nobody expected me to quietly leap to level 2. Gaoyu was stunned. He couldn't understand why I'd dare upgrade this early. After the 7-day trial ends, veteran alien lords in the first Source C can find and invade you. A level 2 territory attracts level 2 enemies. Gaoyu had the resources to upgrade, but deliberately stayed at level 1 because he wasn't confident he could survive those attacks. He figured I was either crazy or hiding some incredible trump card. My 8 contract holders panicked too. If I got invaded and destroyed, they'd have paid all those resources for nothing. Some would have broken the contract if they could, but it required both parties to agree. I told them to relax. Words wouldn't convince them, results would. But their doubt made something clear. Even people who knew me were wavering. Recruiting strangers for protection contracts would be even harder. Showing off a level 2 territory wasn't enough. People would question whether I could actually hold it. I needed someone with credibility to vouch for me. Lynn Hsiao was the obvious choice. The Genestone Commerce Alliance was famous across the entire main world, and their reputation in Dongzhou was unmatched. If he backed me publicly, it would change everything. I contacted him, but not with the request up front. First I did business, selling off all my resource nodes and spare items. A huge pile of crystals came in and went right back out as supplies and materials. Then I brought up my real idea. Lynn Hsiao checked my profile and saw I'd hit level 2. I could tell that impressed him. He understood what it meant. I was confident enough to face Tier 2 and even Tier 3 alien lords after the trial ended. I pitched my idea to him. I wanted him to use his name and the Genestone Commerce Alliance's reputation to help me recruit protection contract clients from the broader pool of new lords. In return, he'd take 10% of everything collected. If I'd asked this when we first met, he would have refused instantly. The Alliance's reputation was priceless. But now, after watching my progress, he actually considered it. He agreed, but cautiously. He'd start with 10 lords. If I proved myself further, he'd expand. Fair enough. Investment always comes with risk. If I collapsed under alien attacks after the trial, those contracts would become worthless and his reputation would take a hit. I also asked about loans. He approved a 10 million crystal low-interest loan, payable within a year. The amount reflected how seriously he now took me. The crystals arrived immediately and left my hands just as fast, converted into resources. Lynn Hsiao found 10 willing clients quickly. Among 10 million new lords, plenty lacked confidence in their own survival. Guild protection was weak, and top lords wouldn't accept random vassals. A one-time protection deal backed by the Genestone Commerce Alliance was exactly what these people needed. Without that guarantee, most would have assumed I was a scammer. History was full of lords who talked big, collected fees, and then died. Back in my territory, I upgraded the Frost Fortress to level 2. It grew even larger and could now hold 20 frost giants. It also unlocked barracks technology, a research tree that could strengthen the troops it produced. This was a major advantage barracks had over troop seals. Seals give you soldiers, but no way to upgrade them or replenish losses. Barracks let you do both. I checked the tech tree. Rows of upgrades branched out. Improvements to the Frost Giant's bloodline, skills, attack, defense, and health. Most higher tiers were locked behind prerequisite research and barracks-level requirements. I upgraded Frost Offensive to level 2, a 20% attack boost for Frost Giants when initiating combat. It was partially sealed because perfect-grade buildings can't function fully in the first Source C, but even reduced, it helped. I skipped defense and health upgrades. Resources were tight, and the Frost Giants were a transitional force for me. They'd stay in the back line lobbing Frost Star explosions. No need for survivability investment. I recruited 10 more Frost Giants, maxing out the fortress capacity at 20. The new ones came out at 5 meters tall and Tier 2, their natural state for a perfect-grade troop. The original 10, including Guan, had been suppressed at Tier 1 by my old territory level. Now that I was level 2, they automatically advanced to Tier 2 as well, growing to 5 meters and matching the newcomers. Tulai also advanced to Tier 2 automatically. I put the new Frost Giants under Guan's command, then focused on filling out my other forces. My level 2 territory allowed 2 barracks, but Jean Ruchuan had no perfect-grade barracks or troop seals in stock. No perfect-grade hero tokens either. These things simply weren't common. Most people who pulled one from a chest kept it. Jean Ruchuan promised to keep looking, but couldn't guarantee anything before the trial ended. Rare-grade troops weren't worth it anymore. They'd come out at Tier 1 and need heavy investment just to catch up in raw stats, while still falling behind perfect-grade forces in skills and techniques. Too expensive for too little. I decided to wait. Instead, I used directed recruitment tokens to bring my black armored soldiers and Dragonlance cavalry both up to 20 each. That was a manageable number to supply and train. Near the Lord's mansion, I'd set up the spirit gathering formation I'd looted from the northern nest. It pulled in spiritual energy from all directions and kept the interior at several times the normal concentration. Zhang Yao and Tu Lai stayed inside it around the clock, even sleeping there, since their high-grade cultivation techniques ran automatically. The 8 remaining slots rotated between soldiers who swapped out when they hit their fatigue limits. One formation wasn't enough for everyone, so I bought a second one from Jean Ruchuan. With 2 running, all 40 human soldiers could cycle through optimal training. I even squeezed myself in when a spot opened, though my cultivation speed was far slower than my heroes and troops. Improving my own strength could wait until after the trial when I'd upgrade my technique. At least the Frost Giants couldn't cultivate with spiritual energy. If they could, I'd never have afforded to train everyone. By day 3, the 6th void layer connected to my territory. The Frost Giants I'd posted as sentries rushed back with the report. I called a full assembly. Looking at my forces lined up, I couldn't help feeling proud. Every single unit had reached Tier 2. I checked a random black armored soldier. Constitution 210, Spirit 170. All of them were like that. Zhang Yao's stats had exploded. Constitution 750, Spirit 720. She'd gone from under 100 in both stats when first summoned to matching Frost Giants in raw numbers, while vastly outclassing them in actual combat power. But Tu Lai was the real monster. Constitution 2,700. Spirit 2,000. Still technically Tier 2, but his true strength had crossed into Tier 3 territory. The killing intent rolling off him was enough to make anyone's blood run cold. With his A-rank technique and 4 A-rank skills, he was a one-man catastrophe. Equipment had kept pace too. Tu Lai and the Frost Giants came with their own fine-grade gear. I'd outfitted Zhang Yao and every rare-grade soldier in full fine-grade equipment purchased from the market. The only rare-grade weapon in my entire army was the Wind Feather Bow, still in Zhang Yao's hands. I looked at my assembled army and felt genuine confidence. I wouldn't claim to be the absolute strongest among 10 million new lords, but I was firmly in the top tier, without question. The 6th layer assault began immediately. From this layer onward, every zone would have monster species and nests, multiple nests, in fact. It didn't matter which direction I hit first, since the last one would always be the hardest, accumulating the most monsters. I chose north again. Half-orcs, as expected. I sent in the army. The difference from before was staggering. Wang Wu led 20 black armored soldiers into the zone. and this time they charged straight into the densest pack. Against Tier 2 soldiers, the half-orc slaves were insects. A single shield bash sent dozens flying. They were supposed to be defensive troops, but they fought like heavy cavalry. The frost giants moved in next. Frost star explosions carved the battlefield into isolated sections. Tu Lai and the Dragonlance cavalry charged through the gaps, slaughtering everything they touched. I entered last with Jiang Yao guarding me. The 6th layer was vastly stronger than the 5th. I spotted over 100 Tier 1 elite monsters, plus new enemies. Tier 2 half-orc braves, 3 meters tall, with heavy axes and better gear. But even they were helpless. Tu Lai could swing his axe once and turn everything within 20 or 30 meters into meat. The soldiers could handle the Tier 2 monsters with ease despite having lower raw stats, thanks to their techniques and skills. The system gave me a first kill reward for the first Tier 2 void monster, 1 million crystals, and a rare chest. The first nest fell in under 10 seconds. But the monsters didn't vanish and no chest appeared. There was a second nest. The cavalry swept the zone and found it 20 minutes later, already desperately spawning reinforcements. Too little, too late. The nest was crushed, and the area chest appeared. Good loot. 240,000 crystals, tons of resources, frost clarity pills, and a fine-grade saber. Nothing spectacular otherwise. At this level, chests mostly dropped fine and common items. Getting anything rare would take serious luck. We cleared the west and south zones smoothly. Similar rewards. The eastern zone was last. Everything went fine until the ground started shaking violently. Something enormous burst from the deep mist and charged straight toward me. A monster 10 meters tall, like a mountain of flesh, barreling forward at shocking speed. It crushed its own allies underfoot without slowing down. A giant monster, also called a boss. These are the rarest, most powerful mutations among void creatures. Their stats can't exceed their tier's limit, but their conversion multiplier is absurdly high, giving them massive attack, defense, and health far beyond elite monsters. They start appearing from the 6th layer onward, but they're extremely uncommon. A Tier 2 boss on only the 6th layer. My luck was bad on this one. A Tier 1 boss already outclasses normal Tier 2 monsters. This was a Tier 2 boss, something that could devastate an unprepared army in seconds. But it had the misfortune of running into my forces. Kill it, I ordered. Jiang Yao's eye sharpened and she started to draw the bow, but Tu Lai was faster. Die, beast! He launched himself off his horse with a thunderous roar. His axe came down in a single blinding arc of blood-red light that split the boss clean in half from head to toe. Then he swung again and again, carving it into countless chunks before it even hit the ground. Dead beyond any question. After Tu Lai one-shot the boss, the eastern zone fell without any more surprises. I waited until everything was confirmed dead before going deep into the mist to find the area chest. I opened it and froze. Among the usual resources, 350,000 crystals, tons of food and materials, sat a perfect grade hero token. I stared at my inventory to make sure it was real. Then I laughed out loud. Getting a Tier 2 boss on only the 6th layer wasn't bad luck at all. It was incredible luck. The boss had boosted the chest quality, and I'd pulled one of the rarest drops possible. I used it immediately. The Phantom River appeared. A towering figure stepped out. Over 2 meters tall, wearing heavy earth-colored armor, carrying an enormous shield in one hand, and a ridiculously oversized war hammer in the other. Where Tu Lai radiated savage killing intent, this new hero felt like an immovable mountain. Quiet, solid, impossible to ignore. Chongyu greets the Lord. I checked his stats and nearly choked. Constitution 920, Spirit 820, even higher than Tu Lai's starting numbers, approaching the Tier 2 limit. A-rank cultivation technique and 4 A-rank skills focused on defense and earth-shattering attacks. Of course, raw stats weren't everything. Tu Lai had his black warhorse and mounted combat bonuses. They'd be comparable once Chongyu caught up in training. Either way, gaining a third perfect-grade hero was a massive boost. Once his strength grew into Tier 3 range like Tu Lai's, my territory would have 2 unstoppable champions. With the eastern zone cleared, all 4 6th-layer zones were done. The 7th layer would take even longer to connect, so I led everyone home, bought food and wine from the market, and let the troops celebrate. My territory had ballooned to 6.8 square kilometers, nearly 7 times what it had been before. The level 3 requirement was 10 square kilometers. One more layer would easily pass that, though the territory cap wasn't a hard limit anyway. Heroes were maxed at 3. Population sat at 4,000 out of 10,000. The troops had all advanced to Tier 2, so they cost more per unit. I still had room for 6,000 more. I hoped Jean Rouchuan could find me perfect-grade troop options. Meanwhile, I started checking the newly converted land for resource nodes. On his end, Jean Rouchuan was watching my progress closely. He had a special group of top-tier lords he tracked, the elites from the biggest factions. When 6th layer clearing began, their territory sizes all jumped as they conquered zone after zone. Mine jumped right alongside them. He was shocked. I was still keeping pace with heirs who'd entered with every possible advantage. On only the 6th layer, I hadn't fallen behind. That was all the proof he needed. He decided to increase his investment, more protection contract clients for me, bigger loans. But he also knew what I needed most wasn't money. It was perfect-grade hero tokens and barracks. He contacted a friend from another major trade alliance and asked directly. The friend didn't have tokens or seals, but had just acquired a perfect-grade barracks blueprint and was looking for a buyer. Jean Rouchuan offered to pay double after returning to the main world, a price too good to refuse. The other merchant agreed quickly. Perfect-grade blueprints weren't guaranteed sales anyway, since only a handful of top lords could afford them, and those lords usually didn't need to pay premium prices. The new resource nodes from the 6th layer were modest, one small stone quarry and a small forest. Not great, but decent-sized. Back in the school chat, everyone was going wild over my territory jumping to 6.8 square kilometers. Even Gao Yu publicly admitted he was far behind me now. 5 more classmates wanted protection contracts. I signed them all without fuss. I sold the 2 resource nodes to Jean Rouchuan, and he hit me with 2 pieces of good news. First, he was scaling up his investment. The number of protection contract clients would increase to 100, and my total loan limit would rise to 30 million crystals. I accepted everything. I already owed him from the Frost Fortress purchase and hadn't paid it off yet. Now I was going deeper into debt. I didn't care. Money means nothing if you're dead, and once I was strong enough, paying it all back would be trivial. Jean Rouchuan wasn't investing this much for interest payments anyway. He was betting on my future. Second, he'd gotten his hands on a perfect-grade barracks blueprint. No hero tokens or troop seals, unfortunately, but the blueprint was exactly what I needed. He sent me the details: storm camp, perfect-grade barracks. Recruits a human perfect-grade troop type called Wind Shadow Archers. Human troop type, not alien. My heart nearly leaped out of my chest. Unlike frost giants who couldn't cultivate with spiritual energy, human troops could train and grow in my territory without any limitations. The long-term potential was incomparably higher. The price was steep, far beyond what my resource sales covered. The fresh loan vanished immediately, paying for the blueprint, building materials, and recruitment supplies. My debt pile grew even larger. I couldn't have cared less. I rushed back to my territory and built the storm camp on the southern side. 6 hours later, a shadowy campsite stood there, surrounded by fierce winds that grew more violent the closer you got. As the territory's lord, neither the Frost Fortress's cold nor this camp's gales could harm me. I recruited my first Wind Shadow Archer. A man in leather armor stepped out carrying a longbow. Constitution 620, Spirit 600. Slightly lower than the Frost Giants in raw numbers, but that didn't mean weaker. I asked him to demonstrate his abilities. He raised his bow and fired. A pale cyan streak shot across the sky so fast I almost missed it. Then a second, a third, 3 arrows per second, each one carrying serious power. I could already picture it. 20 Wind Shadow Archers firing at full speed, an endless rain of cyan streaks pouring into a monster horde. The thought sent a chill of excitement down my spine. After testing the Wind Shadow Archer, I was completely sold. He and the Frost Giants filled entirely different roles. The Frost Giants had raw explosive power and crowd control with their Frost Star explosions, but their firing rate was slow. As the void zones kept getting bigger and the monster hordes kept growing into the tens of thousands, that slow rate was becoming a problem. My melee troops were too few to handle endless waves, and relying on heroes to save the day every time drained their stamina. Wind Shadow Archers solved this perfectly. 3 arrows per second, each one deadly. And when they stopped firing, they faded into shadows, nearly invisible. No strong close combat ability, but incredible battlefield survival through stealth. I upgraded the storm camp to level 2 and recruited 20 archers. I also unlocked the barracks tech and put points into attack speed. A 20% boost, pushing their already insane firing rate even higher. My population hit 6,000 out of 10,000. Both barracks were maxed out. To add more troops, I'd need troop seals, and I wanted more black armored soldiers and Dragonlance cavalry. But I was broke. The storm camp and 4 spirit gathering formations had drained everything. I couldn't borrow from other merchants either. They all knew Lynn Hsiao had already extended me massive unsecured credit. Nobody would pile more loans on top of that. I focused on training. 4 spirit gathering formations ran around the clock. The 3 heroes got permanent spots. Wind Shadow archers had next priority. Then the soldiers rotated through remaining slots. I signed more protection contracts through Lynn Hsiao's network and converted every crystal of income into cultivation supplies. By day 4, the 7th void layer connected. Everyone had grown significantly. Tu Lai's stats had climbed past 4,000. Zhang Yao and Chong Yu had both broken into Tier 3 level strength, with attributes around 1 to 2,000. The Wind Shadow archers were the strongest soldiers at over 900, approaching the Tier 2 ceiling. The black armored soldiers and Dragonlance cavalry sat around 4 to 500. I chose the eastern direction first. Last time, that's where the boss had appeared, making it the strongest zone. There was a chance the next layer would continue that trend, so I wanted it dealt with first. Strange monsters were already gathered at the border. Black apes with 4 arms, radiating dark energy. 4-armed demon apes. I'd never seen them before, but it didn't matter. I knew the 7th layer's general strength level. Chong Yu, take point, I ordered. He marched forward without a word, shield and hammer in hand. Black armored soldiers filing silently behind him. Since summoning him, I'd placed all the black armored soldiers under his command. Their defensive styles matched perfectly, and his leadership made them fight harder. The moment he crossed the barrier, every ape in sight lunged at him. They were huge, terrifyingly strong, capable of beating ordinary soldiers to death with brute force. Chong Yu didn't even raise his shield. He just swung his hammer in a wide arc. Every ape it touched exploded into red mist. The shockwave from the swing killed everything else nearby. He walked through the monster horde like he was taking a stroll, his hammer leaving nothing alive wherever it passed. The black armored soldiers settled into position behind him, locking down the cleared ground. With Chong Yu leading them, they finally had the anchor they'd been missing. As monsters grew stronger with each new layer, it had been getting harder for the soldiers to establish a foothold on their own. That problem was now solved. Wind Shadow archers, attack. They opened fire. The result was beyond anything I'd imagined. Countless pale cyan streaks poured out like a storm, shredding every 4-armed demon ape in sight. In roughly 10 seconds, over 1,000 monsters were dead. The Wind Shadow archers were a game changer. My army's killing power had jumped to a completely different level. We pushed deep into the eastern zone. The 7th layer was enormous, several square kilometers. A few hundred meters in, we hit the biggest monster wave yet. Tens of thousands of creatures swarmed us from every direction. The archers didn't need my command. They opened fire immediately, and in 1 minute alone they killed over 10,000 monsters. The frost giants launched frost star explosions to divide the battlefield. The soldiers and cavalry charged into the gaps. The archers automatically switched to more distant targets to avoid friendly fire. 10 minutes. That's all it took to wipe out the entire wave. Over 100,000 monsters, including tens of thousands of Tier 1 apes, thousands of Tier 2 ones, and over 100 Tier 2 elites. Against the Wind Shadow archers, everything died equally. Even the Tier 2 elites only survived 1 arrow before the second one blew them apart. Tu Lai's cavalry found and destroyed all 5 monster nests in the zone. The last nest had 10,000 monsters making a final stand. The archers' barrage erased them in moments. Most of our time was spent searching, not fighting. The area chest gave me 550,000 crystals, huge amounts of resources, silver, ore, and 10 quick build scrolls that each cut 1 hour off construction time. I immediately moved to the remaining 3 zones. Each was harder than the last. not because the monsters were stronger, but because they'd had more time to gather. The northern zone had over 200,000 half-orcs packed against my border, a wall of green flesh stretching endlessly. Chongyu walked through the barrier without hesitation and started killing. At this level, he was simply invincible. In a previous zone, a Tier 2 boss had appeared, and he'd smashed it to pieces with a single hammer blow. Once he and the soldiers opened the way, the Lynn Hsiao archers moved in, and the slaughter began. All 4 zones cleared. My territory exploded to 25 square kilometers. I sold every new resource node and poured the income into troops and training. Using directed recruitment, I maxed out my population at 10,000, 20 frost giants, 20 Lynn Hsiao archers, 60 black armored soldiers, and 60 dragon lance cavalry. Nothing below rare grade. Then I focused everything on cultivation, pushing every unit harder with spirit gathering formations and training supplies funded by protection fees from Jean Ruchuan's ever-growing client list. Only one more battle remained. The 8th void layer would be the last before the 7-day trial ended. The 9th layer wouldn't connect in time. While the entire territory was training at full intensity, Tu Lai came to me with a concern. Lord, my cultivation speed has dropped dramatically. Investing more resources in me may not be worthwhile anymore. I questioned him carefully. After his attributes had crossed the Tier 2 ceiling and entered Tier 3 range, his training speed had plummeted. At first he'd assumed it was normal. Higher tiers are always harder. But as he kept pushing, he started feeling something else. An extra resistance, beyond just the natural difficulty increase. Something was holding him back. Extra resistance. I frowned when Tu Lai explained what he was feeling. I called over Jiang Yao, Chongyu, and one representative from each troop type. Tu Lai described the sensation, and I asked if anyone else felt it. Jiang Yao nodded. She'd noticed it too, though weaker than Tu Lai's. Chongyu confirmed the same. But the 3 soldiers all shook their heads. No resistance at all. I dismissed the soldiers and thought it through. It wasn't a hero-specific problem. That made no sense. The real difference was that all 3 heroes had broken past the Tier 2 attribute ceiling, while the soldiers hadn't. The resistance appeared only after exceeding the tier's natural limit. My talent was the cause. Infinite. Let everyone grow without being capped by territory level. But the further past the cap they pushed, the harder it got. Made sense, honestly. Each tier represents a 10-fold gap in attributes. If my forces could infinitely exceed their tier with no penalty, even mythic-grade opponents would get crushed. An ability that broken would be rated far above SSS. I asked Tu Lai where the cutoff point was, where investment stopped being worthwhile. He'd experienced it firsthand and gave me clear numbers. He and Chongyu could push to 6,000 in their attributes. Jiang Yao should stop at 4,000. Lynn Hsiao archers could reach 2,000. Black armored soldiers and dragon lance cavalry should just max out at the Tier 2 ceiling. I adjusted my training plan immediately. The leftover resources went into buildings instead, upgrading structures across the territory, since building levels and variety counted toward overall strength evaluations. By day 6, the 8th void layer connected. I assembled everyone. My territory had never been this powerful. All 3 heroes and the 20 Lynn Hsiao archers had hit their target attributes, with strength firmly in Tier 3 range. Many of the soldiers had reached the Tier 2 ceiling. Even the newer recruits were close. Add in 20 frost giants, and I was confident this was among the very strongest forces any new lord possessed. Only someone fielding all epic-grade heroes and troops could possibly surpass me. This is the last battle, I told them. Fight with everything you have. We will die for the Lord. They roared in unison. Since entering the chaotic source C, my command had never faltered. 0 casualties across every engagement. Morale was sky-high. We moved out. The 8th layer was terrifying. Endless monster waves, far stronger than before. Tier 0 creatures were now the minority. Most were Tier 1, with massive numbers of Tier 1 elites, thousands of Tier 2 monsters, and hordes of Tier 2 elites. Many veteran lords who'd held level 2 territories for years would struggle to survive this even behind their defenses. My army was only 163 strong, but every single one was devastating. The Lynn Hsiao archers killed Tier 2 elites with a single arrow each. Frost star explosions left no survivors around the impact zone. Even my black armored soldiers and dragon lance cavalry could match or overpower Tier 2 elites, and those who'd reached the Tier 2 ceiling outright destroyed them. The three heroes moved through the battlefield like gods. Nothing could slow them down. Zone after zone fell. While clearing the second zone, I opened the area chest and got a genuine surprise among the massive haul of resources. A perfect grade weapon called the Mountain Cleaver Axe. Enormous, impossibly heavy-looking, and razor-sharp. My first perfect grade piece of equipment. The Mountain Cleaver Axe was sealed like every other perfect grade item in the first Source C, but even suppressed, its power matched the best rare grade weapons. I let it drop to the ground. It smashed a crater into the earth from sheer weight alone. Everyone's eyes locked onto it. Tu Lai's face lit up. Chongyu stayed calm. Tu Lai, it's yours. He was overjoyed. He grabbed it like it weighed nothing and gave it a casual swing that whipped up a gale across the clearing. Then he shot Chongyu a smug look. Those two had been quietly competing since Chongyu joined. Tu Lai felt threatened by someone who matched him in nearly every way. Chongyu didn't react. He knew the axe was better suited for Tu Lai's fighting style. He trusted I'd give him a proper weapon when one appeared. The last void zone was the worst. Over 500,000 monsters had gathered, including 60,000 Tier 2 creatures, 2,000 Tier 2 elites, and several Tier 2 bosses. Even my army had to fall back. Not because we were outmatched, we simply couldn't kill fast enough. 500,000 monsters stretched endlessly across the landscape. We retreated to the territory border and fought with the invisible barrier at our backs. No threats from behind meant Tu Lai, Chongyu, and everyone else could unleash their full power without worrying about my safety. Every swing killed dozens. Every arrow killed. Every frost star explosion cleared a whole section. It was a brutal, grinding battle, but eventually all 500,000 monsters lay dead. We mopped up the remaining nests, and I opened the final area chest. My territory had ballooned to 87 square kilometers, stretching over 10 kilometers at its widest point. 163 people scattered across that much land were practically invisible. Defense and surveillance would need serious attention going forward. Time to prepare for the 7-day trial, I said. Meanwhile, Jin Rushuan was staring at my profile in disbelief. Among all his top-tier contacts, only two, Wei Xuanqi and Yun Jiyue, both legendary-level prodigies, had also fully cleared the 8th layer. Many other elite lords were still struggling partway through. Some hadn't even finished a single zone. He knew exactly what I'd bought from him. He couldn't understand how those resources had been enough to surpass lords who'd entered with vastly greater support. His highest expectation had been that I'd managed to clear the 8th layer somehow, even if it meant relying on territorial defenses during the trial. Instead, I'd done it purely with military force, 2 days early. He messaged me with a proposal. Would you be interested in a deeper partnership? I'm planning to rebuild the Genestone Commerce Alliance in the first Source C. I need a powerful warlord as an ally. Sign an alliance pact with me, and all your debts are erased. I'll also provide full support to help you grow as fast as possible. I paused. Jin Rushuan, the heir of one of Dongzhou's most powerful merchant organizations, was asking me to be his military partner. My progress had clearly shaken him far more than I'd realized. Tell me more, I replied. Rebuild the Genestone Commerce Alliance? I had no idea what he was talking about. I didn't know enough about the upper echelons of power to follow. Jin Rushuan explained. The alliance operated across all 3 Source Cs and traded not just within the human race, but with friendly and neutral alien races too. That kind of wealth naturally attracted predators. Enemy races attacked their first Source C branch constantly. They'd survived for years through heavy defenses, alliance pacts with powerful warlords, and merging all their merchant lords' territories into one massive fortress. Then last year, a huge invasion hit. Worse, a traitor inside the alliance stabbed them in the back at the critical moment. The merged territory fell. Every merchant lord in the first Source C branch was wiped out. Jin Rushuan had been sent to rebuild from scratch. That's why he'd been so accessible to someone like me. He was desperate for strong allies. The situation painted a grim picture. If even a powerhouse like the Genestone Commerce Alliance could be destroyed, humanity's position in the first Source C was clearly dire. No wonder the main world governments were handing out free fine-grade items to attract more lords. I can't sign an alliance pact, I told him. He was disappointed, but not surprised. Even Wei Xuanqi and Yun Zhiyue, the two strongest lords in our batch, had only said they'd think about it. Signing meant going up against the top-tier alien lords who destroyed the Alliance in the first place. Nobody wanted that fight. But my reason was different. I won't be staying in the first Source C very long. He sent back a row of question marks. Most lords treasured every moment in the first Source C. The rules were simple. Once your territory reaches level 4, you're automatically sent to the second Source C. Otherwise, the maximum stay is 100 years. Almost everyone milks that time, building up strength before moving on. Even elite prodigies backed by major factions typically spend several years preparing. I had no intention of waiting years. After the 7-day trial came the first month ranking and the year-end final evaluation. Those were my real prizes, and to maximize them, I needed to push my territory level as fast as possible. Once I hit level 4, I'd leave the first Source C automatically. That timeline wouldn't be long. Signing an alliance pact with Jin Rushuan and then leaving would just be cheating him. Here's what I suggest instead, I said. No alliance pact. Instead, we sign a contract. I promise to clear out the obstacles blocking your alliance's reconstruction before I leave the first Source C. In return, you give me full support. We scale it the same way as before. Watch my results. Invest accordingly. He hesitated. The obstacles were veteran alien lords at the 3rd tier, incomparably stronger than any new lord. He couldn't imagine me handling them. I can't convince anyone based on a promise alone, he admitted. Then don't, I said. Just watch what I do. But during this 7-day trial, I need your full support. That changed his calculation. If he could control the risk by investing gradually based on results, the downside was manageable. Even going all in during the trial period was affordable. His resources here were limited anyway, and the worst case was a loss he could absorb. Why not try? He said to himself. He agreed. We signed the contract, outlining clear obligations for both sides. Then I got to work spending his support. Jin Rushuan, I'll need about 100 territory expansion cards to start, and every special building blueprint you can get your hands on, plus the materials to build them. As many as possible, he'd said full support. I wasn't going to be polite about it. Jin Rushuan's eye twitched when I asked for 100 territory expansion cards. Those are man-made items brought from the main world. You can't pull them from area chests. He didn't have any, but promised to ask around. Same with special building blueprints. I didn't push it. With his full backing, I didn't need to collect protection fees anymore. Supporting one lord for the remaining time was well within his means. He delivered soon after, 3 expansion cards and 2 special building blueprints. I used the cards immediately, pushing my territory to 100 square kilometers. Back at the territory, I went all out on preparation. I set up 15 spirit gathering formations around the Lord's mansion. Every human soldier and hero could now train inside one at all times. For the frost giants, who couldn't use spiritual energy, I brought in stacks of magic side items courtesy of Jin Rushuan. I wasn't paying for any of this anymore. He was. The only disappointment was the lack of attribute-boosting treasures like the blood-red fruit. My forces were all in the Tier 2 to Tier 3 range now, so only Tier 2 or Tier 3 fruits would work. Those were astronomically rare and expensive. Not even Jin Rushuan could get them. While everyone cultivated, I built defenses. I designed an inner city and an outer city, each enclosed by walls. The inner city held the Lord's mansion, barracks, tavern, and key buildings. The outer city covered resource structures. Together they occupied about 1 square kilometer out of my 100. The rest was too vast for 100+ people to defend. I lined the walls with level 2 arrow towers and cannon towers at every key position. Beyond the walls, level 0 watchtowers blanketed the territory, covering every corner. Traps were scattered across the open land. Any invader would either slow down to clear them or stumble right in. The 2 special blueprints were both rare grade. The first was a blazing cannon tower, a magic-based defense structure with incredible range and destructive power. It needed expensive magic crystals to charge since it couldn't draw spiritual energy, but I didn't care. It was a rare-grade special building that would boost my territory's overall rating. I upgraded it to level 2 and placed it at a critical point in the outer wall. The second was a spirit resonance platform, a cultivation building completely different from the formations. Instead of boosting energy concentration, it enhanced insight. Anyone training on it would gain sudden flashes of understanding about their techniques, skills, and cultivation bottlenecks. Incredibly valuable. I built it inside the inner city at level 2. It held 10 people, with my 3 heroes getting permanent priority and everyone else rotating based on merit. When everything was in place, I looked at my territory with deep satisfaction. Then I noticed the name was still blank. After the trial, this would officially be my domain. It deserved a name. Eternal Divine Domain, an ambitious name. Maybe arrogant. Plenty of lords had chosen names just as bold or bolder. But mine wasn't empty posturing. With an opening no other lord could dream of, I believed my future would match anyone's. I checked my territory panel one final time. Eternal Divine Domain. Level 2. 100 square kilometers. Population maxed at 10,000. 3 heroes. A wall of level 2 buildings. Lord's Mansion, Spirit Resonance Platform, Blazing Cannon Tower, Frost Fortress, Storm Camp, Tavern, Dwellings, City Walls, and more. Looking at all of it, I had only one thought. Who could possibly match this? I wouldn't claim my territory was the absolute strongest among all new lords. Those elite heirs from major factions might beat me in one area or another. Bigger territory, stronger heroes, more special buildings. But no single one of them could beat me in everything combined. They had resources I didn't, but I had a first-generation lord's talent and system rewards that they could never access. Among all first-generation lords across history and every race, I was confident my territory ranked at the very top. First-generation lords had talents and system rewards, but they lacked the second-generation's advantages, the high starting point, the cultivation techniques, the resources brought from the main world. Some of them surely had talents equal to or better than mine. Some had incredible luck with loot, but every one of them would have weaknesses somewhere. I had none. The best 7-day trial reward was mine. On the 7th day, I sat inside a spirit gathering formation and waited. At noon, the system announcement thundered across the entire Source Sea. The 7-day trial has officially begun. The barrier between territories and void zones is temporarily lifted. Destroy all surrounding void zones to pass and become a true lord. I didn't move. My watchtowers showed nothing. No void zones were connected to my territory. I'd wiped out the 8th layer days ago, and the 9th hadn't linked up yet. There were no monsters to fight. For me, this trial was just a formality. I watched the regional channel. Most people were handling it fine. 5,000 years of accumulated knowledge meant detailed guides existed for everything. As long as you followed the strategies and didn't overreach, you'd survive. But there were always people who'd pushed too far, cleared void layers beyond their ability, or lost too many troops to recover. The death rate wasn't zero. I felt the contrast sharply. What had been a life-or-death crisis for the original Blue Star Lords was routine for the second generation. The real danger for today's Lords would come later, when alien Lords could find and invade them. The channel shifted to a new topic, the Prodigy rankings. After the trial, the system would publish a list of the top 100 lords from our batch of 10 million, ranked by overall strength. Nearly every slot would go to elites from major factions. I wasn't sure if I'd qualify, being both a first-generation and second-generation lord at the same time. Hours passed. Lords succeeded or failed against their void monsters. The creatures always charged straight for the Lord's Mansion, ignoring everything else, so the trial didn't last long. Then the final announcement came. The 7-day trial has concluded. Congratulations, you are now a true lord. Isolation between lords is lifted, followed by personal notifications. Congratulations, you have been placed on the human race prodigy rankings, so I did qualify. I didn't care much about the ranking itself. It had no system rewards and was purely a human race matter. What worried me was whether it would interfere with my first-generation rewards. It didn't. The next wave of notifications confirmed everything. 7-day trial settlement begins. Territory level 2. Rating, grade A upper. 10,000 points. Territory size, 100 square kilometers. Rating, grade A upper. 10,000 points. Territory overall strength, extremely high. Rating, grade A upper. 10,000 points. Ranked first among human first-generation lords. 10,000 points. 0 casualties during the trial period. 1,000 points. More bonuses stacked up. My final total, 43,500 points. Points shop is now open. Detected score exceeding 40,000. Special shop unlocked. Your 7-day trial score has set a new historical record. Reward: one-time 90% discount at all shops. Title earned: Eternal Lord. First month settlement will occur in 23 days. Higher rankings and better performance will yield more points. A special shop. A title. I was stunned. Even in all the movies and shows made by that famous Blue Star Lord, I'd never heard of a special shop or titles from the 7-day trial. That meant no Blue Star Lord in history had ever scored above 40,000 points. And I hadn't just passed the threshold. I'd broken the all-time record. 43,500 points. I had no idea how much that was really worth until I opened the points shop. It was staggering. Epic grade hero tokens for 300 points. Special building blueprints starting at 50. Rare grade items were practically free at a few points each. World wonders that could enhance an entire territory. Even legendary grade items were available, though a single legendary hero token cost 3,000 points, or 30,000 at the real price before my discount. That's when I realized everything I was seeing was already at 90% off. Other first-generation lords would see the original prices. At those rates, most could only afford rare grade items. A few exceptional ones might reach perfect grade. Only the very best would touch epic. Then I opened the special shop. Far fewer items, but the quality made my breath catch. Mythic grade hero token, 20,000 points after my discount. 200,000 at full price. Mythic troop seals and barracks were similarly astronomical. But the most expensive item wasn't mythic grade. It was something called the Slaughter Divine Authority, labeled unique. A type called authority, a word I'd never encountered before. Its effect: any unit in my territory that kills a living being earns slaughter points, which can be spent to upgrade heroes and troops' quality grades. Upgrade quality: turn a rare hero into perfect, perfect into epic, maybe even higher. That was beyond anything I'd ever heard of. I agonized over the choice. Mythic hero token versus Slaughter Divine Authority. The token would give me an immediate, massive power spike. The authority was long-term growth with unknown potential but marked unique. Miss it now. Miss it forever. I couldn't decide. I closed my eyes and tapped randomly between the two. A warning popped up. Territory level must reach 8 before a mythic grade hero can be summoned. Confirm purchase. Well, that settled that. Level 8 meant the third source C. I couldn't use a mythic hero for years. Completely useless to me right now. I bought the Slaughter Divine Authority. 30,000 points vanished. A new counter appeared on my personal panel. Slaughter points: 0. How many points per kill and how many needed per upgrade? I'd have to figure out through testing. With the discount used up, the special shop reverted to full prices. Everything was 100,000 points or more. I closed it and went back to the regular shop. I tested legendary items next. Warning: need level 5 territory. That meant the second source C. Epic grade had no restrictions. I could buy those freely. But I didn't rush to buy epic heroes or troops. With Jean Ruchuan and the Genestone Commerce Alliance backing me, getting epic grade items through normal channels was realistic now. Spending rare points on things I could obtain elsewhere was wasteful. The points needed to go toward things that were truly irreplaceable. World wonders. I knew exactly what to buy. World wonders are among the rarest things in existence. Harder to get from area chests than even legendary items. I knew Jean Ruchuan couldn't provide one, but the points shop could. I browsed carefully, skipping anything too expensive, and found exactly what I needed. Myriad Law's Return to Source. A world wonder that converts all supernatural energy in your territory into chaotic source energy, the root of every power system. Spiritual energy, magic, elemental force, chaotic source energy can replace them all. Any resource nodes in the territory would automatically convert to. This solved my biggest long-term problem. Alien troops like the Frost Giants couldn't grow in a human territory because they used magic instead of spiritual energy. The Wind Shadow Archers had already surpassed them despite being recruited later. With this wonder, every species could cultivate freely in my territory. The Frost Giants would become a real main force again, and I'd never have to worry about compatibility when recruiting alien troops in the future. 10,000 points. I bought it immediately. With my remaining 3,500 points, since points expire after one day, I bought 2 epic-grade blank barracks blueprints for 1,500 each. These let you generate a barracks for any troop type already in your territory. My black armored soldiers and dragon lance cavalry had been summoned through seals and had no barracks, meaning no tech upgrades and no easy replenishment. I chose epic-grade blueprints because by the time I built them, my territory would be level 4 or 5, and anything lower than epic wouldn't be worth it. The last 500 points went to a perfect grade special building blueprint, the True Sight Tower, an anti-stealth structure, essential for preventing invisible enemies from sneaking into my territory. I closed the shop and exhaled deeply. The 7-day trial was perfectly concluded. I activated the World Wonder. It dissolved into streams of mysterious light and merged with my territory. I felt the fundamental rules of my domain shift. The spiritual energy filling the air began transforming into chaotic source energy. Once the conversion finished, any cultivation system would work here. Then I remembered the title, Eternal Lord. I opened its description and my eyes went wide. Upon activation, your tier and attributes synchronize with the highest values among all living beings in your territory. This synchronization never decreases, even if the corresponding hero or troop dies. Additionally, you gain mastery of all skills possessed by your current heroes and troops. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My biggest weakness had always been myself, the weakest link in my own territory. I planned to find a proper cultivation technique after returning to the main world and slowly build up my strength. But this title made all of that irrelevant. Why would I ever need to cultivate again? I activated it instantly. Power flooded through me like nothing I'd ever felt. My body transformed at its deepest level. My mind became impossibly clear, aware of the smallest shifts in my surroundings. I opened my stats panel. Tier 2. Constitution 6,720. Spirit 6,510. And below that, a massive list of skills copied from every hero and troop in my territory. Chong Yu's mountain-shattering techniques, Tu Lai's cavalry mastery, Jiang Yao's spear and bow skills, the Wind Shadow Archer's stealth and marksmanship, the Frost Giant's ice magic, the soldier's defensive abilities, all of them mine. My attributes had jumped from the teens to over 6,000. I could kill 1,000 of my former selves with a single punch. The system chimed one more time. First Lord to reach Tier 2. Reward, 1 million crystals and a rare chest. I opened the chest absently. A rare sword, barely registered. I took a slow breath and let everything settle. Time to go back to the main world. The 7-day trial was over, but the journey was just beginning. The first month ranking and year-end evaluation still lay ahead. I would use every resource available, in the main world and beyond, to keep pushing forward, claim the best rewards the system could offer, and grow faster than anyone thought possible. Once the 7-day trial ended, nearly 10 million surviving new lords were unblocked. Our regional channels merged into the first Source C's main human communication network. Some lords rushed back to the main world. Others stayed to network with veteran lords. Many opened the Prodigy rankings immediately. The top 100 lords were listed, all at level 2 territories. The list was dominated by elites from major factions. First place, Wei Xuanqi. Second, Yun Jiyue. Third, Qilon. Seventh, Lynn Hsiao. That was me. 7th out of 10 million. The highest-ranked dark horse on the entire list. Every other surprise entry sat well below me. The regional channel exploded with arguments about who I was and how I'd beaten so many established prodigies. Jean Ruchuan wasn't surprised. He knew my situation better than anyone. Gao Yu was floored. He'd expected me to make the list, but top 10 was beyond anything he'd imagined. Meanwhile, in the main world, the Lords Association headquarters in Shangjing City was already moving. The association governs all lords the way city governments manage ordinary people. Every year after the trial, they summon the top 100 new lords for a meeting. A vice president named Gu Yizhou ordered us all brought in immediately. Lords on the Prodigy rankings receive special support and protection, especially now, during what he called a special period. I appeared back at Qinqing City's Central Plaza, right where I'd left. Now that I was a real lord, I could enter and leave my territory freely without needing the teleportation array. 3 people in Lords Association uniforms were waiting for me. 2 men and a woman named Hu Wei. She showed me their credentials. I'd heard about this treatment for prodigy-ranked lords. Before leaving, I checked my personal terminal. My parents weren't online. They'd left me a message. 2 days ago, their territory in the second source sea had been invaded, and both of them had rushed back to defend it. Both of them. That worried me. Normally, only one parent would need to return for a routine attack. If both went, the threat was serious. I couldn't contact them directly. I was in the first source sea, they were in the second. So I called their lord friends who were also in the second source sea, asking them to find out what was happening. If things were critical, I'd try to get a top-tier second source sea lord to intervene. If it wasn't urgent, I'd handle it myself once I got there. That wouldn't take long. I apologized to Huawei's team for the delay. They'd waited patiently, without a word of complaint. They led me to the western side of the central plaza, where intercity teleportation arrays stood alongside the Crossworld One. A flash of light, and we were on our way to Shangjing City, the capital of the main world, headquarters of the Lords Association. Behind us, people in the plaza were already buzzing. Someone recognized the association uniforms and put the pieces together. Word spread fast. That young man who just left is Lynn Hsiao. He made the prodigy rankings. Top 10. Top 10? Our Qinxing city hasn't produced a prodigy-ranked lord in 500 years. It was my first time in Shangjing City, the main world's capital. No time for sightseeing. Huawei's team led me straight to the Lords Association headquarters, an enormous building that towered over everything around it. Inside a luxurious meeting hall, some of the other prodigy-ranked lords had already arrived. Mostly unfamiliar faces. Lynn Hsiao, over here. Jin Rushuan waved me over. First time meeting face to face. He looked exactly like his profile picture. Sharp, efficient, all business. The other prodigies studied me with mixed expressions. Curiosity, resentment, challenge. I ignored them, sat down next to Jin Rushuan, and asked casually, 7th on the rankings. How'd I do? He gave me a thumbs up. One word. Incredible. He confirmed he'd keep investing in me. Though the Commerce Alliance's full support would depend on higher-ups he couldn't control alone. Still, even what he could provide personally was far more than during the trial. I told him what I needed: epic-grade hero tokens and troop items, recruitment materials, cultivation resources. He rolled his eyes. I can get you one epic-grade item at most. Recruitment and cultivation supplies, partial. He cut my request in half. Fair enough. More would depend on my continued performance, per our contract. I asked what the association itself would offer. Jin Rushuan knew the details. Everyone on the Prodigy rankings gets to pick one perfect grade item for free. Top 10 gets 2. Top 3 gets 3. First place gets an epic grade item. No strings attached. But the real prize was protection from the Heavenly Martial Alliance, humanity's strongest organization in the First Source Sea, operating under the Lords Association. Their job is to protect human lords, especially prodigies. Then Jin Rushuan's tone turned grim. Don't think making the rankings is all good news. The Prodigy rankings has another name, the kill list. Enemy races actively spy on our rankings and target listed lords for invasion. Prodigies face far more danger than ordinary lords. That's why even heirs from the most powerful factions still welcome the Alliance's protection. Other races could potentially delay their own rankings from leaking, giving their prodigies time to grow. Humanity couldn't, because of one problem. The Sin race, I said. Jin Rushuan nodded. The Sin race, traitors who split from humanity 2,000 years ago. When the original Blue Star Lords descended, they came from different nations with deep-rooted conflicts. They'd suppressed their divisions to face external threats together. But when humanity clashed with the Purgatory race in a massive war across all 3 source seas, lords originally from certain nations, the Lighthouse, the Sakura Islands, and others, were seduced by the Purgatory race and betrayed humanity at the critical moment. The devastation was catastrophic. Countless lords were annihilated. Even the main world suffered. The entire Western continent was nearly reduced to wasteland. Humanity was crippled for years. The traitors split off permanently. The remaining lords, primarily those of Chinese origin, kept the name human race. The defectors called themselves the Prosperity Alliance and became the Purgatory race's most loyal partners and humanity's deadliest enemy. They still had spies hidden in the main world. System-generated rankings like the Prodigy list were impossible to conceal from them. No matter how many purges humanity conducted, these infiltrators, especially those from East Asian nations who looked identical to us, were nearly impossible to root out completely. A legacy problem with no clean solution. My first thought after hearing about the Sin race spies was clear: my secret must never get out. If the Purgatory race and the Sin race learned that I was a first-generation lord with access to exclusive system rewards, they would throw everything they had at destroying me. I couldn't solve the spy problem, but I could keep my mouth shut. I'd never told anyone, and I never would. The meeting hall suddenly erupted in noise. Several prodigies received messages and went pale. Jean Rouchuan checked his terminal, and his face turned dark. The Heavenly Martial Alliance is gone. I was stunned. We'd literally just been talking about them as humanity's strongest force in the first Source C. When, a month ago, it was classified until now. His voice shook with rage. The Sin race. Again. The traitor who destroyed the first Source C's Genestone Commerce Alliance was Sin race too, so that's who'd backstabbed the alliance. The Sin race was using their remaining hidden agents sparingly, saving them for devastating strikes at the worst possible moments. First the Commerce Alliance, then the Heavenly Martial Alliance. Two precision blows that crippled humanity's infrastructure in the first Source C. The situation was dire. I needed to grow faster than ever. A thunderous shout cut through the panic. A tall, middle-aged man strode in, Gu Yizhou, vice president of the Lords Association headquarters and a high-ranking lord. He scolded everyone for losing composure and scanned the room. Most prodigies from major factions had already steadied themselves. The few dark horses without powerful backing looked shaken. When his eyes reached me, he paused. I was calm. I'd never counted on the Heavenly Martial Alliance for protection in the first place. As long as resources kept flowing, my growth speed would exceed anyone's expectations. He gave a brief nod of approval, then laid out the situation bluntly. The first Source C was extremely dangerous. The Purgatory race and Sin race were actively hunting human lords, trying to crush humanity's presence entirely. But humanity would never abandon the first Source C. It was where every new lord began, the lifeblood of the entire race. We survived near extinction 2,000 years ago, he said flatly. This is nothing. Then the good news. Because of the crisis, support for prodigy-ranked lords was being upgraded one tier. Everyone on the list could choose one epic-grade item. Top 10 got 2. Top 3 got 3. Alternatively, items could be exchanged for equivalent resources. The room lit up. Epic-grade items for everyone. That was unprecedented. Normally, only first place received epic-grade support. I was 7th. 2 epic-grade items from the association, plus 1 Jean Rouchuan had promised. 3 epic-grade items total. Gu Yizhou dismissed the meeting quickly, telling everyone to grab their rewards and get back to developing their territories. But he called out 6 names, mine included. Jean Rouchuan wasn't surprised. He told me he'd contact me later and left. The 6 of us who remained were all dark horses, no major faction backing. Gu Yizhou looked at us with genuine respect. You outperformed prodigies from the most powerful families in the world. That proves you're exceptional. Then he asked whether any of us had received investment offers from major factions. Most of us hadn't checked. We'd barely had time to message our families, let alone read through what I could already see was an overflowing inbox on my terminal. Gu Yizhou explained that as ranked prodigies, we'd all receive investment offers from major factions. He told us to look through them. I scrolled through mine and shook my head. The offers were generous. Even epic-grade items were on the table. But the conditions were unacceptable. Every contract required joining a guild or alliance, completing assigned missions, with terms starting at 3 years minimum. The tasks were all in the first Source C, which effectively trapped me there. I couldn't accept any of them. Negotiating custom terms like I'd done with Jean Rouchuan wouldn't work either. Jean Rouchuan had agreed because his alliance was desperate. These other factions weren't in that kind of trouble. To them, I was just another promising newcomer, not worth major concessions. The others were excited by the offers. I wasn't. Then Gu Yizhou made his own pitch. The Lords Association would offer the best terms of all, surpassing every private offer. The price: join their plan to rebuild the Heavenly Martial Alliance, 5-year commitment. The others looked torn. Great rewards, but the mission was enormous. I walked up to Gu Yizhou directly. Can we talk privately? He looked intrigued and led me to a side room. I'll sign with the association, I said, but the terms need to change. 5 years is too long. Instead, let me clear a portion of the obstacles blocking the Alliance's reconstruction. And to protect yourself from empty promises, don't invest everything up front. Watch my performance and scale your support accordingly. The same framework I'd used with Lynn Hsiao. He blinked. Did you just say you'd clear the obstacles? I nodded. He almost laughed. Then he laid out exactly what those obstacles were. Humanity's main enemies in the first source C, the Purgatory race, the Sin race, and 2 vassal species, had billions of lords combined. The real problem wasn't ordinary lords but tens of thousands of veteran Tier 3 lords who'd been entrenched for decades. With the Heavenly Martial Alliance gone, the balance of top-level power had collapsed. These veterans would aggressively devour humanity's remaining forces. Even the weaker Tier 3 lords were far beyond what any newly minted lord could challenge. Now do you understand how ridiculous you sound? He finished. He'd never expected us new prodigies to contribute much to the reconstruction. His real hope was simply that we'd survive and make small contributions over time. But I wasn't backing down. Vice President Gu, why not try? The worst outcome is disappointment. Your actual losses would be minimal. He studied my face. No fear, no hesitation. What he didn't know was the truth behind my confidence. The first source, C, has a power ceiling, Tier 3. I had no ceiling. Those veteran lords might be deeply entrenched with thick defenses and years of accumulated resources. But against absolute power, endurance and fortifications only delay the inevitable. Guizhou stared at me for a long moment. I haven't met someone this bold in years. If young people aren't bold, what's the point of being young? He laughed and agreed to my terms. At the end of the day, the risk was just some resources. He said if my performance was impressive enough, the Lords Association would match it with whatever support I needed. No limits. You said it, not me, I replied instantly. He looked amused but didn't take it back. Hui handled the actual contract. It was signed quickly. The initial resource package was modest, but I didn't mind. What I cared about were my 2 epic-grade items. I chose a troop type first. My territory had 4 ground-based forces. I needed flyers. Something that could bypass enemy defenses entirely and strike at their core. Hui hesitated slightly. Flying troops were premium and highly sought after. But Guizhou had apparently told her to give me some preferential treatment, so she agreed. She sent me a list of epic-grade flying troop options. Most were alien species. That was fine. With the world wonder I'd loaded, alien compatibility was no longer an issue. I scanned through the options, eliminating anything with poor synergy with human forces. Then one caught my eye. Blazing Purgatory Dragon Nest. Epic-grade barracks. Recruits Skyburn Flame Dragons, a dragon race troop type. Dragons. The universally acknowledged top-tier species. I already had giants in my territory. Adding dragons seemed perfectly fitting. This one, I said immediately, afraid someone else might grab it first. In reality, I was overthinking it. Guizhou had made sure this option appeared on my list specifically. Other prodigies didn't get this choice. For my second epic item, I traded it for equivalent resources instead. Lynn Hsiao had promised me an epic hero token, so I didn't need another. What I desperately needed were materials, especially for building the dragon barracks and recruiting the dragons themselves. Before leaving Shangjing, I checked on my parents again through their friends. Still no contact. That actually wasn't bad news. It meant the invaders hadn't overwhelmed them quickly. Once the spatial disturbance from the battle subsided, communications would resume. If things turned critical, I'd find a way to get top-tier second source Sea Lords involved. Otherwise, I'd handle it myself once I got there. That wouldn't take long. I returned to my territory. Nothing had changed. The first source C had countless lords, and nobody had found me yet. I contacted Lynn Hsiao first. He delivered the epic hero token and a mountain of resources, then pulled me into a group chat. 5084 Prodigy Group, everyone on this year's Prodigy rankings. Only a few dozen had joined so far. The group leader was Wei Xuanqi, the #1 ranked lord. He encouraged everyone to cooperate, share intelligence, trade resources, call for help when needed. With the Heavenly Martial Alliance gone, we prodigies needed to support each other. I noticed the reception was noticeably cooler toward me and the other dark horses compared to the faction-backed prodigies. Even lords ranked well below me got warmer welcomes. No surprise. In this world, background mattered as much as ability. We had no powerful families vouching for us. Meanwhile, in a place I couldn't see, The Sin Race's Heretic Hunting Bureau had already issued orders. Find the coordinates of all 100 human prodigies. Massive rewards for discovery, tenfold rewards for a kill. The Purgatory race and their vassal species put out similar bounties. Every hostile lord in the first source C was now sharpening their blade and searching for us. The other prodigies in the group clearly didn't think much of me. In their eyes, my high ranking was just luck. Now that the trial was over and their powerful families were pouring in support, they'd leave me in the dust. I wasn't bothered. As long as nobody came to my face to mock me, I had no interest in proving anything. They were right about one thing. We really weren't in the same world. Just not in the way they thought. I connected with my new contact from the Lords Association, a woman named Chinyi. She handled the first resource delivery under our contract. When I opened my inventory, I was surprised. For a small initial investment, this was enormous. Recruitment materials for frost giants, wind shadow archers, and skyburn flame dragons, plus mountains of cultivation resources and other supplies. Even after subtracting the epic item I'd converted to resources, the amount was staggering. The Lords Association operated on a completely different level from the Genestone Commerce Alliance. I built the True Sight Tower in my inner city, the perfect grade anti-stealth building I'd been sitting on due to lack of materials. Then I started planning my upgrade to level 3. I had everything except one thing, a Lord's Heart, which could only be obtained by destroying another Lord's territory. I was about to search for an invasion target when the system beat me to it. Your territory is under invasion. Already? I hadn't expected it this fast. I pulled up my territory map. A red dot appeared at the eastern edge, detected by one of my watchtowers. No details, just a location. Watchtowers were basic structures with limited intel. To lie, I called. Here, Lord, eastern border. Invaders. If they're weak, destroy them and bring me a prisoner. If they're strong, don't engage, come back and report. He mounted his black horse and thundered east, radiating killing intent. I didn't let my guard down. There was a small chance this was a Tier 3 Lord's forces. My territory shifted to war footing. Every hero and soldier except Tu Lai took positions on the outer walls. Defense towers activated. I tried opening the regional channel, blocked. When your territory is under invasion, space-time turbulence cuts off all outside communication. No calling for help, no sending messages. Invaders can't leave either. Everyone's trapped until the turbulence settles. Against same-tier invaders, it lasts up to 7 days. Against higher-tier invaders, it clears much faster, allowing you to call for reinforcements sooner. While I was thinking through the mechanics, the red dot on my map suddenly started moving. Fast, heading straight toward my core area. My heart jumped for an instant. Then I calmed down. If Tu Lai had been overwhelmed, I'd have received a death notification. He was fine, which meant he'd already dealt with the invaders and was bringing back a prisoner. I checked the system log. Dozens of entries had piled up silently. Your hero killed a Tier 2 creature. Gained 2 slaughter points. Your hero killed a Tier 2 creature. Gained 3 slaughter points. Line after line. Too many to announce individually, so the system had just logged them. Tu Lai had wiped them out. The ground trembled as he approached. A black whirlwind resolved into his figure, leaping over the outer wall and landing on the rampart. He hurled something dark onto the stone at my feet. Lord, Tu Lai has completed the mission. Enemy leader captured. I looked down. It was a humanoid creature in black armor, vaguely resembling a crusader. Unconscious, or close to dead. I had no idea what race it was or what had hit it, but given Tu Lai's idea of restraint, I was honestly surprised it was still in one piece. I looked at the unconscious prisoner. A human hero, which meant a Sin race lord had sent them. Tu Lai gave me the details. The invasion force was 1 hero and a few dozen soldiers, all rare or fine grade. In Tu Lai's words, pathetic. Kill him, I said. Tu Lai grabbed the crusader-style hero, tossed him into the air, and split him into pieces with a single axe swing. The system announced victory and gave me 3 things: a gold-tier war chest, the invading lord's information, and 1 revenge opportunity. War chests are different from area chests. You only get them through combat, and only if you win. The quality, gold, silver, or bronze, depends on your performance. My forces had wiped out the entire invasion in minutes with 0 losses. Perfect performance, gold chest. I opened it. 100,000 crystals, basic resources, and a rare-grade helmet. Not bad. War chests in the first source C cap out at rare items, so pulling one from a level 2 territory was actually lucky. I gave the helmet to Tu Lai. Then I checked the invasion intel. When you completely wipe out an invading army, you get the attacker's identity and territory coordinates, plus a time-limited chance to strike back. Prosperity Alliance Lord Raymond. Tier 2, Sin Race. Of course, they were hunting human prodigies, and this one had stumbled onto me. Whether that was his good luck or bad luck depended on perspective. You'll be my first target. I opened the invasion panel. After passing the 7-day trial, every lord gains the ability to invade others. Normally you search randomly, but with coordinates, you can strike directly. The revenge option would expire in 7 days if unused. I organized my forces quickly. This was my first offensive. An all-out assault meant to destroy his territory completely and claim a lord's heart for my level 3 upgrade. I wasn't bringing everyone. The Dragonlance cavalry stayed behind. Siege warfare wasn't their strength. All 60 black armored soldiers came with me, half the Wind Shadow archers and half the frost giants. For heroes, Jiang Yao stayed to guard the territory. Tu Lai and Chong Yu marched with me, and I was going personally. With the Eternal Lord title, I was the strongest fighter in my territory. I wasn't afraid of any battlefield. Spend 100,000 source crystals to initiate invasion. Confirmed. A space-time corridor ripped open before me. I led my army through. On the other end, Raymond had just received the notification that his invasion failed in under 10 minutes. He was terrified. That kind of speed meant an insurmountable gap in power. He suspected he'd accidentally found a human prodigy and was scrambling to report it to the Sin Race's Heretic Hunting Bureau. Even without knowing my coordinates, the trace from our connection might let their experts track me down. He opened his communication channel to send the report. The screen went dark. Forcibly shut down. Your territory is under invasion. Space-time turbulence. Communications blocked. He couldn't contact anyone. He cursed and immediately understood. Just minutes after his army was annihilated, his own territory was being invaded. It had to be me, striking back before he could warn anyone. He was right. We appeared at the northern edge of Raymond's territory. Before I even gave an order, Shuang spotted a hidden watchtower and destroyed it with a single arrow. Eagle Eye misses nothing. I led the advance carefully. Chong Yu took point while the black armored soldiers spread out as a perimeter screen. I warned everyone about traps. I'd filled my own territory with them, so I knew other lords would too. The Wind Shadow archers handled most of them. Their eyes swept the ground constantly, triggering simple traps with precisely aimed shots. For terrain traps like toxic pools and marshes, the frost giants dropped frost star explosions that froze everything solid. We walked across the ice. Raymond sent troops to ambush us a few times. The Wind Shadow archers killed them before they got close. He stopped trying after that. We reached his walls fast. I studied the defenses with Eagle Eye, one of many skills I now possessed. Rows of arrow towers and cannon towers, solid walls, and one rare-grade heavy cannon that was clearly his trump card. For a normal lord, these defenses were genuinely impressive. He'd probably repelled stronger invaders before by turtling behind all of this. But he'd never faced anyone like me. I raised my right hand. Magical energy condensed into a blue-white sphere several meters wide. A frost star explosion, cast by me personally. With my stats, it was incomparably more powerful than anything the frost giants could produce. I hurled it at the heavy cannon. Direct hit. The rare-grade cannon was obliterated instantly. The blast wave froze every nearby tower into ice sculptures. The temperature across that section of the fortress plummeted. The assault began. Chong Yu marched forward with his massive shield. Raymond screamed for his defenses to focus fire on him. Arrows and cannonballs hammered down and did absolutely nothing. They bounced off him like pebbles hitting a mountain. His full set of rare-grade equipment combined with his monstrous stats made him completely impervious to anything this fortress could throw. Behind him, the black armored soldiers advanced in rotating defensive formations, absorbing fire meant for the rest of the army. The Wind Shadow archers melted into shadows, nearly impossible to target. The frost giants activated their ice armor, which slowed and weakened every projectile before it even reached them. Raymond's entire defensive network was firing at full power, and it couldn't cause a single casualty. Then we started shooting back. Cyan streaks and frost star explosions rained onto the walls. Towers crumbled one after another. Any defender who showed their face on the battlements died instantly to an archer's bolt. A frost star explosion cleared the ground in front of the gate, destroying any hidden traps. Chongyu walked up to the steel gate and slowly raised his warhammer. Ground shatter. The boom drowned out every other sound on the battlefield. The reinforced steel gate twisted, buckled, and exploded into a shower of fragments. The fortress was open. One hammer blow shattered Raymond's reinforced gate, but the damage didn't stop there. The shockwave from Chongyu's ground shatter cracked the walls in every direction, collapsing entire sections and splitting the ground with deep fractures. Raymond panicked. He sent his strongest hero, a stone creature named Kunta, built for defense, to block Chongyu. One swing of the war hammer smashed Kunta to pieces. Everything else Raymond threw at us was even weaker. Paper thin. Chongyu was genuinely invincible inside this fortress. Nothing in Raymond's entire territory could threaten a perfect-grade hero with Tier 3 attributes and full rare-grade equipment. In the whole First Source C, only Tier 3 epic-grade heroes could reliably beat him. Tulai couldn't hold back any longer. I gave him the nod and he vaulted onto the walls, swinging the mountain cleaver axe through towers and defenders alike. Defense buildings crumbled. Nobody lasted a single exchange. I leaped up to the wall myself, but didn't need to fight. It was already over. Raymond burned through his remaining hero tokens and troop seals desperately, summoning fresh units. But the mass casualties had tanked his army's morale. New summons absorbed the despair from the surviving troops and refused orders almost immediately. He was throwing away resources out of spite, preferring waste over letting me benefit. An arrow of cyan light punched through his chest from across the battlefield. One of the Wind Shadow archers had found him hiding. The system announced my victory. Gold War chest, Raymond's personal belongings as loot, and the option to destroy his territory. Destroying it could randomly yield a building blueprint, a resource node, or a piece of land. Leaving it alone meant the chaotic source C would just swallow it. No reason not to take the free reward. Destroy territory. A 30-second countdown began. I chose to return home immediately. When the countdown ended, the spoils appeared in my inventory automatically. I'd gotten lucky. The random reward was a blueprint for Raymond's rare-grade heavy cannon tower, the strongest defensive structure he'd owned. A solid addition to my defenses. And then the notification I'd been waiting for. You have obtained a Lord's Heart. Finally. This was the last requirement for upgrading to level 3. A Lord's Heart isn't really an item. It's a qualification, proof that you've killed an equal-ranked Lord and destroyed their territory. You can only earn it once. Killing more Lords afterward won't give you another. I opened my territory panel without a second's hesitation and slammed the upgrade button. Some might say I should wait, spend my cultivation resources first, strengthen my troops, then upgrade when I'm more prepared for the dangers of being a Tier 3 territory. I disagreed completely. Right now, many of my troops were hitting the extra resistance from exceeding their tier cap. Every resource I spent on cultivation was fighting against that penalty. Wasteful. The moment I upgraded to level 3, the ceiling would rise. That resistance would vanish. The same resources would produce far greater results. I'd establish myself among Tier 3 lords quickly, then use warfare to fuel further growth. More victories meant more investment from the Genestone Commerce Alliance and the Lords Association. A virtuous cycle of accelerating power. Waiting was the wrong choice. Speed was everything. Golden light poured from the sky, grander than ever before. The Lord's mansion transformed into a luxury villa surrounded by a lush courtyard. Then the remaining light swept across my entire 100-square-kilometer territory, stabilizing the space and flooding it with chaotic source energy at Tier 3 concentration. Level 3. Day 8 since I entered the chaotic source C. Among 10 million lords from my batch, most were still at level 0 or 1. Level 2 was reserved for top-tier prodigies. Level 3? Just me. The system rewards came fast. First lord to reach level 3. 10 million crystals and a perfect grade chest. First lord to advance to tier 3. Same again. My heroes and the Wind Shadow archers automatically jumped to tier 3 with the territory upgrade. And thanks to the Eternal Lord title, I advanced too. My lifespan stretched to 800 years. I saved the chest for later. Territory adjustment came first. It was time limited. 100 square kilometers with complex terrain needed careful work. Mountains to mountains, rivers to rivers, plains to plains. I locked the layout down and stabilized the energy concentration. Then I sprinted to the western side of my territory, to an empty area I'd set aside near a mountain range. I slammed down the blazing Purgatory Dragon Nest blueprint. Epic-grade barracks need 24 hours to build. I burned through every quick-build scroll I had and watched the construction accelerate. A massive volcano rose from the ground. A dark dragon nest perched at its peak. When it finished, scorching heat erupted from the crater, sending temperatures soaring across the entire area. The environmental impact of an epic-grade building dwarfed anything my perfect-grade barracks had done. I opened the recruitment panel and summoned my first Skyburn Flame Dragon. Fire erupted from the volcano. A massive red shape shot into the sky, then swooped down and landed before me. A 20-meter-long Western-style dragon covered in crimson scales, streams of living flame flowing across its body. "Tyler greets the Lord," it said in a deep rumble, bowing its enormous head. I checked his stats. Constitution 7,500. Spirit 8,300. A-rank Dragon Bloodline. 5 A-rank skills: Dragon Magic, True Dragon Body, Dragon Rage, Meteor Summoning, and Searing Dragon Breath. In my entire territory, only Tu Lai and Chong Yu surpassed him. Through the Eternal Lord title, Tyler's attributes synced to mine instantly. I felt the surge of even greater power flowing through me. I upgraded the Dragon Nest to level 3 immediately. The volcano expanded to a full square kilometer. At level 3, it could hold 20 Skyburn Flame Dragons. I had enough materials to recruit all of them. One by one, dragons burst from the volcano with earth-shaking roars, then knelt before me under Tyler's lead. 20 fire dragons assembled. Then I pulled out the epic-grade hero token and used it. The Phantom River materialized, time fragments swirling endlessly. A slender figure stepped out from within. The new epic-grade hero looked nothing like I expected. A slender girl in silver-white leather armor, casually twirling a cold, gleaming dagger. She introduced herself as Qianing with a small bow, polite, quiet, almost forgettable. No overwhelming pressure like Tu Lai, no mountain-like presence like Chong Yu. She seemed like someone you'd overlook completely. I didn't notice that the moment she appeared, all 20 Skyburn Flame Dragons went absolutely silent, trembling with fear. Then I opened her stats. Constitution 9,100. Spirit 8,700. S-rank Cultivation Technique. 5 S-rank skills: Void Walking, Light Concealment, Void Power, Flash Slash, and Spatial Blade. I stared at the girl beside me with new eyes. She was an assassin, an absurdly powerful one. She could melt into light itself, travel anywhere light touched. In darkness, she'd slip through the void. The moment she found her target, one flash, one kill. She wasn't built for frontline combat like my other heroes. She was built to bypass every defense and execute the one person who mattered, the enemy lord. That gave me an entirely new way to win wars. With Qianing and the 20 Skyburn Flame Dragons now in my forces, I finally relaxed a little. The urgency had been real. Upgrading to level 3 meant I'd hit the first Source C's maximum territory level. Every Tier 3 enemy lord could now find me through searches. The Prodigy rankings update in real time, so the Sin race and Purgatory race would learn about my advancement almost immediately. They wouldn't sit back and watch me grow. Invasions could come at any time. If I failed to wipe out every attacker, my territory coordinates would leak, and then their full armies would descend on me. That's why I'd rushed to summon Qianing and the dragons before anything else. Now I could breathe slightly. I wasn't weak among Tier 3 lords anymore. But the strongest ones out there had full rosters of epic-grade heroes and troops built up over decades. I still had a long way to go. My advantage was that my ceiling was infinitely higher than theirs. I checked the Dragon Nest's tech tree and found something useful: Red Lotus Domain. It could create a zone around the volcano that stimulated the dragon's bloodline power, accelerating their growth. The dragons were too big for spirit-gathering formations, so this was the alternative. Unfortunately, unlocking it required expensive prerequisite research and high-grade resources I couldn't spare yet. I sent the dragons to begin cultivating on their own, then brought Qianing to the inner city and placed her in a spirit-gathering formation. She needed to grow as fast as possible. Next, I upgraded the Frost Fortress and Storm Camp to level 3. Each could now hold 50 troops. I recruited them all, 50 Frost Giants, 50 Wind Shadow Archers. Then I used directed recruitment to bring the Black Armored Soldiers and Dragon Lance Cavalry to 100 each. My full army, 20 Skyburn Flame Dragons, 50 Frost Giants, 50 Wind Shadow Archers, 100 Black Armored Soldiers, 100 Dragon Lance Cavalry. 320 soldiers total, plus 4 heroes. Population sat at just under 40,000 out of 100,000. I deliberately left room. I need the space later when the Slaughter Divine Authority started upgrading troop quality, which would increase their population cost. I couldn't afford to feed more troops right now anyway. Resources had limits. While everyone trained, I went through my accumulated loot. The second gold war chest from the Raymond fight gave basic resources and a fine-grade halberd. Unlucky this time. Gold chests don't guarantee rare drops, just better odds. Raymond's personal belongings dropped next. When you kill a lord, you get 10% of their crystals and basic resources, plus a random 10th of their inventory items. His bag had dozens of things, but almost all common or fine-grade. Nothing impressive. I kept what was useful and dumped the rest on the trading market. The 2 perfect grade chests from the level 3 and tier 3 first place rewards were the real prizes. One gave me a perfect grade dagger called Soul Piercer, perfect for Qianing. She already had a full set of rare equipment from being summoned, which was fine for the first Source C, but the dagger would matter later in the second Source C. The second chest gave me a special building blueprint. Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, perfect grade. Its description said it could sever karmic connections and conceal territorial information, preventing others from obtaining my coordinates. I was skeptical. Hiding from system-level mechanics with a perfect grade building seemed too good to be true, but it was still a valuable special building worth investigating. I'd ask Jean Ruchuan and Qin Yi about it later. I didn't have the rare materials to build it anyway. Then I checked my slaughter points, 1,867.52. The decimal surprised me. I dug into the system logs from the Raymond battle. Killing a Tier 0 creature gave 0.01 to 0.1 points. Tier 1 gave 0.1 to 1. Tier 2 gave 1 to 10. Within each tier, stronger and higher quality targets gave more. Lords and heroes gave the maximum for their tier. Raymond and his heroes each gave 10 points. The bulk of my points came from the early phase when his original Tier 2 forces were dying. Once those were gone, and he started panic summoning Tier 0 and Tier 1 replacements, the returns dropped to almost nothing. I didn't know yet how many points it cost to upgrade quality. Time to find out. I gathered all 4 heroes and 1 representative from each of the 5 troop types. I tossed the Soul Piercer to Qianing. She caught it with one hand, examined it with visible pleasure, then chose to dual wield it alongside her original dagger. Of course, this wasn't a game with weapon slot restrictions. I called you all here, I said, because I want to see if I can upgrade your quality. Dead silence. Everyone stared at me in shock. Even Chong Yu's composure cracked. Quality upgrades were supposed to be impossible. Every hero and soldier in the chaotic source C was born at a fixed grade. Rare stays rare. Perfect stays perfect. That was absolute common knowledge. Zhang Yao, the Black Armored Soldiers, the Dragon Lance Cavalry, they were all rare grade, the lowest quality in my territory. They'd watched newer, stronger editions arrive one after another and quietly accepted that they'd eventually be outgrown. They'd already made peace with being sidelined. Now I was telling them their grade could change. Their trust in me was absolute. No matter how impossible it sounded, they believed. I could see hope igniting in Zhang Yao's eyes, and in Wang Wu's, and in every one of the original soldiers who'd been with me since day one. It wasn't just Zhang Yao and the other rare grade members who were excited. Tu Lai and the perfect grade forces felt the same way. Even Qian Ying and Tyler, my 2 epic grade units, were moved. They knew that as the territory grew, legendary and mythic heroes would eventually join. Nobody's position was guaranteed forever. I told them to calm down. It wouldn't be easy. Testing the Slaughter Divine Authority was simple. It worked on instinct. I just focused on a target, and the system responded. For Wang Wu, a rare grade soldier, 10,000 slaughter points to upgrade. I winced. One war against Raymond had only given me about 1,800 points. But thinking it through, the cost made sense. Rare grade caps at Tier 4. Killing a Tier 4 creature gives roughly 10,000 to 100,000 points. So 10,000 was actually the minimum. I was getting a deal. I tested everyone else. Rare grade hero, Zhang Yao 200,000 points. 20 times a soldier's cost, which made sense given hero's superior power and rarity. Perfect grade soldier, 1 million points. Perfect grade barracks, 100 million. I was stunned that barracks could be upgraded too. That meant upgrading the source, not just individual units. Incredibly efficient. Epic grade soldier, 100 million. Epic grade barracks, 10 billion. Epic grade hero, 2 billion. The numbers were enormous, but not unreasonable. Raymond, a single ordinary Tier 2 lord, had provided nearly 2,000 points. A Tier 3 lord would give 10,000 or more. The first source C was full of hostile lords to hunt. One thought hit me. Could killing void monsters earn slaughter points too? The 8th void layer alone had over 1 million creatures. If it worked, that could be a massive source. I'd test it once the 9th layer connected to my territory. But I wasn't going to rush. Right now was the rapid growth phase. Training came first. The killing could wait. I sent everyone back to cultivate. The upgrade hadn't happened yet, but nobody was discouraged. They trusted me completely. Zhang Yao and the others knew that something as miraculous as quality upgrades wouldn't come cheap. Meanwhile, the outside world was in uproar. The Prodigy rankings had updated in real time, and everyone saw that someone had reached a level 3 territory. New lords, veteran lords, everyone was shocked. Most veterans still weren't Tier 3 themselves. In the Prodigy group chat, a third of all ranked lords reported being invaded by the Purgatory race, and Sin race shortly after the trial ended. The actual number was probably higher. Some lords were still fighting and couldn't communicate due to space-time turbulence. People started tagging the top 10 lords, asking for guidance. Wei Xuanqi, the number 1 ranked lord, responded. He'd already killed a Purgatory lord and obtained a lord's heart. He could upgrade to level 3 whenever he wanted. Lynn Hsiao, ranked 2nd, immediately called him out for showing off and pointed out the real question. Did he dare to actually upgrade? With the current crisis, becoming Tier 3 meant facing the full wrath of entrenched enemy veterans. Wei Xuanqi admitted the timing was bad. His advice to everyone, don't rush. Wait, observe, build strength quietly. When the time comes, upgrade together as a group so no one gets picked off alone. Don't go up one at a time like idiots, he wrote. Lynn Hsiao didn't argue. The whole group seemed to agree. Then someone posted the latest news. Lynn Hsiao has upgraded to a level 3 territory. The Prodigy group chat exploded the moment someone posted that I'd upgraded to level 3. The rankings had already updated. I'd jumped from 7th to 1st. Everyone else shifted down a spot. First place, Lynn Hsiao, level 3 territory. Second, Wei Xuanqi, level 2. Third, Lynn Hsiao, level 2. Wei Xuanqi had literally just finished telling everyone to wait, stay cautious, and upgrade together when the time was right. Then I went and did the exact opposite. I could imagine the look on his face. Lynn Hsiao apparently messaged him privately asking if they should follow my lead. He talked her down. He tried to contact me, but didn't have my friend info, so he went through Jean Rushuan instead. The Lords Association panicked too. Guizhou ordered Qinyi to reach me immediately and find out what was going on. The Sin Race's Heretic Hunting Bureau issued a kill order. All their Tier 3 lords in the first source C were mobilized to find and destroy me. They didn't care about my reasons. Stick your head up, get it cut off. When I finally opened the regional channel, my inbox was completely flooded. Hundreds of messages from strangers. I cleared them all in one tap. I handled my contacts in order of importance. Qin first. The Lords Association was my biggest backer. She relayed Guizhou's concern and his promise to send emergency resources. I was touched. He didn't yell at me for being reckless. He just sent help. No emergency, I told her. This was always the plan. I accepted the resources, mostly cultivation supplies to speed up my forces training. I also asked her about the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion and its Sever Karma, Conceal Coordinates ability. She'd never seen anything like it and went offline to investigate. Jean Rushuan was next. He was more composed than most since I'd told him before that I wouldn't stay long in the first Source C. But even he hadn't expected, not long, to mean 8 days. He mentioned the Prodigy chat was going crazy and that everyone without my contact info had been badgering him for answers. I opened the group chat, curious what people were saying about me. The Prodigies had split into factions. Some thought I was doomed. Others figured I must have a hidden trump card. Nobody ranked 7th would do something this stupid without reason. A few hotheads were screaming about following me and upgrading immediately. I was a little disappointed. Nobody was openly mocking me. I'd been looking forward to proving people wrong to their face. But the Prodigies were too smart for that. If I died, mocking me was pointless. If I survived, I'd become the strongest ally they could have when their own upgrades came. Nobody wanted to make an enemy of me right now. Fair enough. I typed a message in the group. Everyone, I'm already a Tier 3 Lord. When the rest of you decide to upgrade, is your business. Since we're all in this group together, you're welcome to ask me for help when the time comes. It won't be free, of course. Other than that, I don't have much to say. I'm invincible. Do whatever you want. The Prodigy chat went insane. Nobody had ever seen someone this bold, or this cocky, in their presence. These were Prodigies, people who were used to being the arrogant ones. Now I'd walked into their group and dropped a bomb. Lynn Hsiao was the first to respond. If you're still alive on day 10, I'm upgrading immediately. A dozen other war-minded Prodigies jumped in right behind her. Wei had spent all that effort calming everyone down, and I'd undone it in one message. I could almost feel his frustration through the screen. I sent one last reply, at Lynn Hsiao, you'd be second at best, and closed the chat. I accepted friend requests from Wei Lynn Hsiao, and several others. Qinyi came back online shortly after, moving fast out of fear I'd get invaded and lose communication. She was excited. The Heavenly Secrets Pavilion was apparently an extremely rare type of building. A fake concealment structure. She explained how it worked. It couldn't override core system rules. If an invader stayed in my territory for more than 10 days or destroyed over 50% of it, my coordinates would still be revealed. But it could block every other method of tracking my location, items, equipment, techniques that traced karmic connections between me and anyone who'd visited my territory. At perfect grade in the first source C, the pavilion's shielding was at maximum effectiveness. No equipment-based tracking could penetrate it. Only extraordinarily powerful talents, exclusive to first-generation lords, or A-rank skills could break through. And according to Qinyi, no enemy faction currently had such capabilities in the first source C. But I didn't fully relax. The enemy could hire other races' first-generation lords. They could also summon new heroes with the right skills once they figured out I had fake concealing defenses. The only truly safe approach was the same as always. Kill every invader completely. Dead lords leave no karmic trace. No trace, no tracking. She'd also brought the materials to build the pavilion. Guizhou had approved them personally. I thanked her and started a message asking about anti-stealth capabilities for my territory. The chat window vanished. Your territory is under invasion. Here they come. I didn't panic. Didn't even check the map. Instead, I opened my mouth and spoke in a strange, ancient language, dragon tongue magic. I'd gained it from the Skyburn Flame Dragons through my title. The spell let me communicate with Tyler and the other dragons across any distance within the territory. In seconds, I had the invader's location. Northern border. Several hundred soldiers had materialized at the edge. They spread into combat formation instantly. Defensive units forward, offensive units behind. Smooth, silent, professional. A veteran force, clearly belonging to an established Tier 3 lord. Exactly the kind of army I'd expected. What they didn't know was that high above them, a pair of cold eyes was watching every move they made. Since I hadn't unlocked the Red Lotus domain tech yet, the Skyburn Flame Dragons gained nothing from staying near the volcano. I'd stationed them at the territory's edges instead, patrolling the skies. Their vision was incredible. Just a few dragons could monitor the entire border with room to rotate. The moment the invasion alert sounded, I used dragon tongue magic to reach Conrad, the dragon circling the northern border. Report. He sent me a visual feed, like watching a movie in my head. Human troops. Probably Sin race again. Several hundred soldiers in tight formation, led by a Tier 3 human hero. A much larger force than Raymond's. This made sense. A Tier 3 territory has 100,000 population capacity. Even with all rare-grade troops, that's over 1,000 soldiers. Sending several hundred was a serious commitment. This lord clearly wasn't messing around, though he'd wisely kept forces at home to defend his own base. Should I take them out? Conrad asked eagerly. Not yet. Watch them. If anyone splits off or goes invisible, tell me immediately. I ordered Tu Lai to lead a ground force toward the area and redirected another dragon as backup. Then Conrad's voice crackled urgently in my head. They're splitting up. I checked through his eyes. The main army had stopped advancing and sent out several 10-man scouting parties to probe ahead. Standard caution, they had no idea what kind of territory they'd entered. Perfect. Do it now. High above, Conrad gathered an enormous amount of magical energy. The sky over the invaders slowly turned crimson. The enemy hero sensed it. I could see him look up, eyes widening in horror. Everyone run, he screamed. Too late. A dark red fireball 10 meters across broke through the clouds and plummeted to Earth. Summon meteor. The impact was apocalyptic. The ground heaved. A shock wave of dark flames swept outward, incinerating everything within a square kilometer. The soldiers at the rear were vaporized instantly. Those farther out, including the hero, were either burned to ash or crushed by the blast wave. One strike. The entire main army, hundreds of Tier 3 soldiers, wiped out. Only the scouting parties survived, thrown to the ground by the shockwave, staring in blank shock at the crater. Tu Lai and the Dragonlance cavalry arrived shortly after. The scouts were Tier 3 rare-grade soldiers, individually stronger than my cavalry. But they were completely broken. They couldn't muster any real resistance. Tu Lai cut down the ones who fought back, and the rest surrendered. The system log flooded with slaughter point notifications. Tier 3 kills, 25 to 31 points each. I studied the aftermath through Conrad's feed. Incredibly satisfying firepower. One meteor had erased an entire veteran invasion force. The attack range and destructive power dwarfed anything the frost giants could produce. But then I looked at the crater itself, a massive lava-filled hole scarring my territory. I winced. New rule. Absolutely no meteor strikes inside my own territory unless it's a genuine emergency. My land was only 100 square kilometers. A few more of those, and the place would look like the surface of the moon. Save the meteors for void zones and enemy territories. I noted a flaw with the meteor strike. It takes time to fall, and strong enemies can escape the blast zone if they spot it early enough. This invasion force was only rare grade. That's why the meteor wiped them out so completely. Against perfect or epic grade troops, the results wouldn't be nearly as devastating. The real ideal targets for meteors were buildings. They can't run. I imagined dozens of meteors raining down on a heavily fortified territory and smiled. I didn't kill the last few prisoners right away. I wanted to delay the invasion's conclusion. The moment the battle officially ended, the enemy lord would receive the notification and could start investigating. Keeping prisoners alive bought me time. I'd execute them on day 6. I placed the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion in the inner city using the materials Qin Yi had delivered. With it active, my territory gained a powerful layer of protection against tracking. Then I reorganized my forces. Since more invasions were coming, I moved the spirit-gathering formations to the territory's 4 borders. Each hero took a section with their troops, training and defending simultaneously. Tu Lai held the east, Jiang Yao the south, Chongyu the west with Qian Ying as backup for her slower speed. I took the north personally. The next day was quiet. No invaders, but the 9th void layer finally connected to my territory. I went in immediately to test whether killing void monsters gave slaughter points. I stepped through the barrier, and monsters rushed me. I opened my mouth and unleashed Thunder Roar, Chongyu's skill. The shockwave turned everything nearby into pulp. Then I used Dragon Tongue magic to fly up, slipped into the void using Qian Ying's stealth abilities, and waited. Thousands of monsters gathered below, drawn by the noise. 1, 2, 3 tiers, all coming. When enough had gathered, I materialized, chanted, and called down a meteor. The explosion erased thousands of void creatures in an instant. The system confirmed the first kill of a Tier 3 void monster. 10 million crystals and a perfect grade chest. And the slaughter points, they worked. Void monsters counted. Thousands of kills in one blast gave me several thousand points, 2 to 3 times what the entire Raymond War had produced. I was thrilled but stayed disciplined. This wasn't the time to go on a grinding spree. My priority was still growing stronger. I wasn't going to clear my own void zones either. If invaders appeared while my army was fighting millions of void creatures, it would be catastrophic. I opened the perfect grade chest, a shield called the Black Obsidian Shield, perfect for Chongyu. In the first Source C, the raw defense bonus wasn't much better than rare grade, but the durability was incomparably higher. A rare shield could shatter in intense combat. A perfect one wouldn't. Another day passed, and another invasion hit. This time from a bull demon lord, one of the Purgatory race's vassal species. Stronger than the previous Sin race force, but still not enough. My territory was growing more powerful by the hour. I crushed them without needing any special techniques, and kept a few prisoners alive to stall the clock. By the third day, I noticed the space-time turbulence around my territory wasn't fading at all. Normally, it should have been halfway through dissipating, but the second invasion from the Bull Demon Lord had stacked more turbulence on top of the first. The combined duration would last at least 10 days. This was going to be a recurring problem. I was the Purgatory race and Sin race's top target. They'd keep spending massive amounts of crystals on targeted searches until they found me. Even with terrible odds, enough attempts would eventually connect. That meant constant invasions, constant turbulence, and complete isolation from the outside world. No communication, no resource deliveries. I frowned, but I wasn't panicking. There was a built-in safety valve. On the 7th day of continuous turbulence, the system grants the besieged Lord one forced communication, a chance to send a message through the chaos. I didn't need rescue, but I could use that window to request supplies from Jin Rushuan and Qin Yi. Then on the 4th day, something unexpected happened. A system notification told me that a human lord named Li Bo was requesting my aid. It was a mandatory request under our protection contract. Li Bo was one of my contract holders from the early days. A Tier 1 lord, nowhere near important enough for the enemy factions to deliberately target. Bad luck, maybe? I opened his message and understood immediately. Li Bo wasn't actually in danger. Jin Rushuan had arranged this. Since I couldn't contact the outside world, Jin Rushuan had found a workaround, the rescue system. When a lord under attack sends a distress call to a contract partner, that partner can dispatch troops regardless of their own turbulent status. It was a communication channel disguised as a military operation. Li Bo had deliberately let void monsters breach his territory's barrier to trigger the rescue conditions legitimately. I called Jiang Yao over and sent her with a few wind shadow archers through the rescue portal. They carried my message, a list of resources I needed, and a status update. The void monsters in Li Bo's 4th layer zone were nothing to Jiang Yao. She was back within 30 minutes, completely relaxed. Li Bo had burned his one-time vassal-level protection on what amounted to a messenger run. A terrible deal for him, but Jin Rushuan would compensate him. On Jin Rushuan's end, my message landed. He was struck by my tone. No fear, no desperation, just a shopping list. Anyone else in my position, cut off from the world with enemy invasions piling up, would have been terrified. Some would have already published their coordinates begging for allies to come defend them. I hadn't even considered it. Jin Rushuan got to work gathering what I'd asked for and coordinated with Qin Yi. He also started identifying other contract holders and friends who could serve as future message carriers the same way. Rescue requests could only come from friends, faction members, or contract partners, and I had over 100 contracts plus a growing friend list. Finding suitable candidates wasn't hard. Meanwhile, in the Prodigy chat, Wei Xuanqi and Yun Jiue were asking Jin Rushuan about me. He kept it brief. He's fine. That was enough to get Yun Jiue seriously preparing to upgrade. She'd publicly promised to follow me if I lasted 10 days. She wasn't backing down. With over a dozen war-minded prodigies planning to upgrade together, they could split the enemy's attention. If I could survive alone, surely they could manage as a group. On day 5, invaders appeared again. This time, not the Sin race or their vassals. The Purgatory race itself. Through the dragon's eyes, I watched them materialize on my western border. 2 to 3 meter tall humanoids with horns, thick tails, black scales covering their bodies, and dark demonic energies swirling around them. Only about 100 soldiers, far fewer than the previous invasions. But fewer didn't mean weaker. I immediately alerted Chongyu and Qianing on the western front. One of the Purgatory race heroes, 3 meters tall, suddenly looked up and spotted my 2 patrolling dragons. His expression shifted to shock. Dragons are universally recognized as top-tier creatures, never below perfect grade. He recovered quickly and ordered his troops to watch the skies. These were battle-hardened veterans, not easily shaken. I suspected many were perfect grade, possibly all of them. This was an established, Tier 3 Lord's army, a clear step above the ordinary forces I'd faced before. In my classification, first source, Sea Lords fall into 3 categories. Ordinary Lords field mostly rare and fine-grade troops. That's where most people sit. Established Lords have significant numbers of perfect-grade forces and form the backbone of any race's power. Top-tier Lords possess epic-grade heroes and troops, extremely rare, usually leaving for the second source C within a few years. This was an established Lord's army. A real fight. Chongyu and Qianning arrived with their forces. We were actually outnumbered, but numbers aren't everything. The dragon struck first. 2 searing beams of crimson light, blazing dragon breath, lanced down from the sky and carved through the purgatory formation. Everything the breath touched was vaporized. Even a near miss erased body parts like a hot blade through butter. 2 deep trenches of molten earth scarred the ground. Over 20 purgatory soldiers died instantly. The purgatory hero had barely dodged one of the beams. He was drenched in cold sweat. He recognized the truth immediately. Those were epic-grade dragons, which meant I was almost certainly a prodigy, possibly their primary target. But knowing that didn't help him survive. "Charge," he screamed. His only hope was to close the distance and engage my ground forces directly. If his troops were mixed in with mine, the dragons couldn't fire without hitting their own allies. He was right. The dragons held back after the initial strike. Chongyu stood firm. I'd given his group 10 Lynn Hsiao archers alongside the black armored soldiers. Cyan streaks rained onto the charging purgatory troops, but the results weren't as dramatic as before. These were all Tier 3 fighters, many perfect grade, genuinely stronger than my recently promoted forces. They had ranged units too. Over a dozen massive black fireballs reeking of sulfur came arcing toward my lines. If those detonated in our formation, casualties would be severe. The Wind Shadow archers instantly shifted targets and detonated every fireball before it could land. The Wind Shadow archers got pinned down intercepting those fireballs, freeing the purgatory troops to charge without ranged harassment. The purgatory hero's eyes blazed with killing intent as demonic energy erupted from his body. He was about to leap into my lines and start slaughtering. Then a flash of brilliant light split the battlefield. The 3-meter purgatory hero's body slid apart into 2 halves. He never saw who killed him, never even understood what happened. His last thought was simply, "I'm dead." Qianning materialized on the far side of the battlefield, soul piercer gleaming cold in her hand. Flash slash. In the instant she crossed the field, she bisected over a dozen purgatory soldiers along with their hero. Then she vanished again, reappeared behind the enemy ranged units, and wiped them out just as easily. Chongyu exhaled with relief. He could feel how strong these purgatory troops were. A straight fight would have cost many black armored soldiers their lives. But Qianying's overwhelming power instantly tipped everything. Once Chongyu waded in with his hammer, the remaining purgatory soldiers' morale collapsed completely. A clean victory. Some of my soldiers took injuries, but 0 deaths. The entire purgatory invasion force was annihilated except for a few prisoners kept alive to delay the clock. I was satisfied with what I'd seen. Dragon breath had terrifying penetrating power, far more destructive than meteors in a concentrated area, enough to threaten even perfect-grade Tier 3 heroes. And Qianning could single-handedly dominate any battlefield at this level. The Western Front was secure. Even an established Purgatory Lord's forces had fallen with minimal cost to me. The only real threat would be top-tier lords with epic-grade armies, and those were busy attacking humanity's main forces, not chasing a single new prodigy. On day 6, I executed the first batch of prisoners from the Sin race invasion. Gold War chest, enemy lords information, revenge opportunity. The chest gave 1,000,000 crystals, massive resources, gold, ore, and a rare-grade bow. The Sin race lord who'd sent them received the failure notification. He wasn't too alarmed. His troops had lasted 6 days, which suggested the defender wasn't overwhelmingly powerful. He filed a report with the Heretic Hunting Bureau and moved on. He had no idea I'd deliberately stalled. Day 7. The forced communication window opened. I didn't use it. I didn't need rescue. Day 8. I killed the bull demon prisoners. Another gold chest with similar rewards plus a rare grade siege crossbow blueprint. Good luck, 2 rare drops in a row. 8 days had passed since my level 3 upgrade. Every spare moment had gone into training. The results were remarkable. Every single hero and soldier in my territory had reached tier 3. Even the latest batch of black armored soldiers and dragon lance cavalry had broken through. Lower tiers don't take long with enough resources. Their stats sat around 3,000, limited by their rare grade talent. The perfect grade wind shadow archers were far ahead. Most had passed 6,000, with the veterans approaching 8,000, nearing the tier 3 ceiling. No extra resistance within their natural tier meant explosive growth rates. The frost giants, unable to use spirit gathering formations due to their size, lagged behind at 3 to 4,000. Still stronger than the rare grade soldiers in real combat, but well below the archers. The Skyburn Flame Dragons were in a similar situation. No formations available. But they'd started with extremely high base stats, so even with slower growth, they'd already pushed past the tier 3 ceiling. Constitution and Spirit both approaching 20,000. Without exaggeration, Tyler and the other dragons were now the strongest soldiers in the entire First Source Sea.